Here's Jeremy's contact information.
Excuse me, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to start the Finance Committee in a moment. Good evening. The time is now 5:01. The Warwick Finance Committee is open. To begin today, if I may have a motion to accept the minutes for the meeting held on February 7th.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion, I have a second. All in favor? Aye. Thank you.
Aye.
Item number 1 is bid 2022-286 Alpha, City of Warwick, District 6, gasoline, low sulfur diesel, ultra low sulfur diesel fuel. Christy, good evening.
It's all right, Phil, I got it. Good evening, that's better. Public Works is requesting to award the purchase of diesel and unleaded fuel for the department in the amount of $850,000 to Roberts Energy for a period of 1 year from April 10, 2022 to April 9th, 2023.
Thank you so much, Christy. Are there any questions from members of the committee? Going to hold on one moment. While Councilman Gebhardt reviews his personal notes, are there any questions from members of the council? All right, I'm going to hold off right now, and I'm going to give the Councilman Gebhardt a moment. Oh, yeah. Move it on to the, okay, so Councilman, once you're done researching, I can then call it. So if I may have a motion for the minutes of the meeting held on February 7th from the Finance Committee agenda.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Thank you so much. Councilman Gebhardt.
I am okay on this one.
Thank you so much, Councilman. Any other questions for members of the committee? Members of the council? Councilman Lattisaw.
Thank you, Chairman. So, Christie, as I'm sure you've anticipated some of my questions from 9 years of repetition.
Councilman, we're having a hard time hearing you. I'm sorry.
So I said, I'm sure Christie has anticipated my questions after 9 years of repetition. Christie, what I did notice in looking through the munis reports from January to February 17th is, based upon those numbers, there's been a significant amount of monies spent on fuel per day more than the 291 days prior to the January 10th munis report. And I was just wondering if you could explain why those numbers are so much higher.
Well, if you're mean like the per period, the bills that come in, sometimes they're a little bit of a lag when they come in or when they get processed. So it looks like we spend more money in 1 month. We get deliveries every week of both products. So it's not that we're spending more in a month. It's just when the invoices get processed for payment.
I'm talking a big difference. I'm talking a difference for the first 291 days of this contract from April 10th, I think it is, until the munis report I pulled in January. The usage average dollars now was somewhere in the vicinity of $400 a day. In the 29 days following the January munis report, which is one I pulled on February 17th, we're talking somewhere like around $1,300 a day spent in fuel for those 29 days. So do you have a lot of fuel in the tanks? Is that it? I know the encumbrances have dropped from last month to this month. So the only conclusion I can come up with, and that's why I'm asking the question, is do you have a lot of fuel in the tanks? How much fuel do you have in your tanks right now for gasoline?
As of 2 o'clock this afternoon, we had 2,496 gallons.
What was that again, please?
2,496 gallons.
And at an average cost per gallon?
The last bill was $262.
And you have 2,400, I'm sorry, how much?
2496.
2496 in the tank, okay. Okay, I'm going to reach out to you perhaps for one day next week to get together with you at your office. I didn't bring all of the numbers with me. It's just too long to sit here and go through it all. But I'd like to review that process with you to see if my numbers are accurate or not.
Okay.
I'll shoot you an email, and whatever works for you next week would be good. Thank you, Chair. That's all I have.
Thank you, Councilman. Are there any other questions for members of the council? Are there any questions from members of the public? Questions from members of the public? Item number 2, bid 2022-286 Bravo, City of Warwick, District 6, gasoline low sulfur diesel, ultra low sulfur diesel fuel for found on page 5. Good evening, Chief.
Good evening. Chief Omenauer from the Fire Department. Fire Department's recommending that the bid for diesel fuel go to Santa Buckley Energy of Bridgeport, Connecticut. This is for an amount of $200,000 for a one-year period from April 10th, 22 to April 9th, 2023.
Thank you, Chief. Any questions from members of the committee? Councilman Gebhardt.
This might be a newbie question, but under each fuel type, the departments are listed and then price per gallon for each department. What's the difference? Do you use different? Is it based on volume?
Why is it, yeah, so why is it different between departments for each
Yeah.
type?
Yeah.
Because of the different tanks. The fire department has 5 1,000-gallon tanks, so it costs more to deliver that fuel than if they filled up a 12,000-gallon tank at the police department. So they charge more because they have to come out with smaller trucks to multiple places.
Huh.
So that's probably why the increment's a little bit higher for a fire department. And you'll see the same probably on the sewer department because they've got small tanks, I believe, at the substations.
Got it. Well, that difference is significant. I don't know if there's anything in the future we can do to.
Yeah, on new, so fire, we're 10 cents over the rack rate. DPW pays 2 cents over. So yeah, it's an
Got it.
8 cents difference. But they get one big delivery every week. We get maybe 5 deliveries
Got it.
within a week.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
I got to tell you, that was a good question, not a. So that brings up a good question that I'd like to ask, Chief, is has there been a thought, or I understand, so you already have all the tanks at the stations. Has there been a thought, or is it economically feasible? Or if you haven't done the study, drop the question. We can talk about it another time, of having districts, like like 3 stations to a gas tank.
Well, it is kind of now. We have 5
Yep.
tanks over the 9 stations. We don't want to spread them out too far, so the trucks have to travel a distance out of their own, local district in order to just fuel up. Those decisions were made by previous chiefs as to where to put those tanks. They're all in good condition, in good states of repair. There's no reason to get rid of them. We've had some internal discussions in the fire department about some other options that might be able to be a little bit more efficient and more cost effective, but we're still in that discussion phase.
All right. Good answer. Thank you so much. Either way, I'm going to blame Chief McMichael. I just got to do it.
It's his idea.
It seems like the right thing to do. Thank you. Any questions from the members of the committee? Questions from members of the council? Councilman Lattisaw.
Thank you, Chairman. Chief, how many fuel tanks did you say you have?
We have 5 1,000-gallon tanks.
5 1,000-gallon tanks. That's just for diesel?
Just diesel. Yeah, we get our police, the police supply our gasoline, and they back charge us from the police tank.
And do you have separate tanks for winter diesel and new ultra diesel?
No, it depends on the time of year as to what they deliver. Certain times of the year, we have to have the winter diesel as opposed to the low ultra.
What's the difference between winter diesel and new ultra diesel?
I believe ethanol content.
It's what?
The ethanol added to it in the winter.
Ethanol is added to it?
I believe, I'm not an expert on fuels, but they put an additive in the winter for fuel.
Do you know if they do that at the diesel pumps at the regular stations? I'm just
I
curious.
don't know that. I believe so. I think that's what that sticker is on the gas pump that says we add this percentage of. Not positive.
Yeah, because I'm thinking, trailer trucks, the 18-wheelers, I would assume they should have the same concern about winter fuel versus new ultra diesel. How much fuel do you have in your tanks now?
Between the 5 tanks, we have 3,210 gallons between the 5 tanks.
And the price per gallon, the average you've been paying?
So the last fuel up that we had was on February 9th, the last bill that we received. And with taxes, it was $3.87 a gallon.
$3.87?
Correct.
You said the last bill you received was February what?
It was for a fill-up on February 9th,
February 9th.
was the last fill that we've received the bill for. We have been filled since then, but we haven't received the bill yet, so we don't know what that price would be. I think, I'm not quite sure because we haven't received the bill, so we'll see.
How many gallons was that?
The last fill-up, I haven't got the bill yet, so we don't know.
You haven't received it yet?
No.
So that's not in your encumbrances as of February 17th Munis report, right?
Correct. The last one that would be in that would be the February 9th bill.
So according to the February 17th Munis report, you have a zero available balance in 35,221.
Because that's done as a drawdown. So we take a purchase order out for the entire amount of fuel that we're going to use up until the bid ends, and then we draw down off of that amount. So the purchase order, when I came to you, to council and finance committee last meeting to increase our spending limit, we increased it by $37,500. That's how much we had left in the budget. I took that money and we increased the purchase order drawdown by that amount. So that way, over the next couple of months, when we do get invoices, we just deduct from that purchase order. So I took the entire amount of that bid and put it into the purchase order.
So, I don't know, maybe I'm misunderstanding. I'm looking at a financial statement, which we refer to as the Munis report, and it's showing you in 35,221 with a zero available balance. You just said you got a delivery on February 9th, and that is not encumbered yet. So once that delivery is encumbered, that's going to put you over budget, isn't it?
No.
No?
The purchase, we have $37,000 left in the purchase order for diesel fuel from Roberts Energy.
Then how does the Munis report show you with a zero balance?
We don't take a purchase order out every time we get a delivery. We take a purchase order out for a large amount to cover the time period that we're going to get deliveries. And then we deduct from that purchase order every time we get an invoice. So to truly see what we're using delivery by delivery, you'd have to look at the purchase order that was put out by purchasing, and that would show you all the invoices that were paid against that single purchase order. So it's one single purchase order for the entire year's fuel, or most of the year's fuel. So
you have
it encumbers immediately when we pull the purchase order. That gets deducted that gets encumbered from the budget.
Bear with me 1 minute.
Sure.
Let the Freedom Bird go over. So you have a budget of $200,000 for 35,221. Then it shows us a column, year-to-date expenditures. Then it shows us a column, encumbrance. The encumbrance is the invoices that the city has received that haven't been paid for yet. So it's an accounts payable in my world. After we take out your budget of $200,000, take out the year-to-date expenditures, take out the encumbrances, which are the payables to date, which was February 17th, it shows you with a zero balance available. So I don't understand the formula that you're using.
Correct. So the difference between the encumbrance and the actual is what we have left available to spend for that fuel. So if you look at the difference between those two lines, that's what's left in the purchase order to pay those bills. So once I pull the purchase order, it all becomes encumbered and it's not available to us anymore. But as we pay the bills, it'll go from encumbrance to actual.
Right. The encumbrance goes away.
So although I have no actual money, I have no reserve balance left because it's all
Right.
tied up in a purchase order, there is a difference between the encumbrance and the actual, and that would be what we have left to date to spend, which should be around $37,000.
I'm going to have to see where that number is
Okay.
because the encumbrance goes away when it's paid. So if you're sitting there with $50,000 in encumbrance on February 17th and it shows a zero balance, that is anticipating the payment of the $50,000 that's encumbered. will bring you down to a zero balance. So I don't
Correct.
see how your formula comes out to show that there's 37,000 left.
On your report, what does the encumbrance show currently?
I don't have that report with me right now.
But there was a
whatever-
positive
whatever
balance
the-
there.
What is it?
But there was a positive balance there. It should be around $37,000 in encumbrance.
Encumbrance, right.
Yeah, that's the money that we have promised to Roberts Energy to pay the bills over the next
Right.
couple
And
months.
after that 37,500 is paid, you have a zero balance.
Correct. So as of April, we will be out of money in that budget, and we're going to be looking to transfer $50,000 into that line. If that's what you're trying to
To
get.
my point.
Correct.
To my point. So you pay the 37,000 off, you have a zero balance.
Correct.
You have an invoice coming in from February 9th. That's not encumbered yet because you haven't gotten the invoice.
It is
How does that
encumbered.
get accounted
It is
for?
encumbered.
where's it encumbered? You haven't even
It's
gotten an
encumbered
invoice
in the
yet.
purchase order for Roberts Energy.
That's part of the 37,500?
Correct.
How
So
do
we
you
take
know
out
that?
one large purchase order at
Yeah.
the beginning of the year.
Right.
All that money becomes, so say if I have a $200,000 budget, I take a purchase order out for $200,000. I only spend money on diesel fuel from Roberts Energy. So I take the entire budget and I encumber it into a purchase order. So as of July 2nd, my available balance is usually going to be zero because it's all tied up in a purchase order for Roberts Energy. And then as the invoices come in, we pay those invoices on that purchase order. So then they move from the encumbrance line into the actual line. So
Okay.
if you see right now, you'll see about $37,000 left in encumbrances. That's how much money we have left in the purchase order to pay Robert Energy bills as they come in over the next couple months. Once I run out of that money, encumbrance, we're anticipating around April 1st or sometime in mid-April or beginning of mid-April, then we will have no budget left. So I've got no more money to put into a new purchase order for this new vendor. That's
So-
where I'm going to have to transfer money into the budget.
So in that 37,500, you have a purchase order for the delivery of fuel you just got on February 9th, included in that 37,500. Is that what you're saying?
Correct.
But you don't know what the amount is
Of that single invoice?
of that one invoice, right?
I don't know what that, I think it was about $2,800, I believe, was the last invoice we got.
Okay.
So if the next bill comes in and it's $3,000, I charge it to that purchase order, and $3,000 comes off of the residual 37,000 that's left, and it goes down by $3,000. It continues to do that
Okay.
as I pay invoices.
All right, Chief, in the interest of time here, you've got it clear here to a degree. I'd like to meet with you next week also and go over some of the numbers that I have based on the munis reports and consumption, et cetera. Would that be okay?
That's absolutely possible.
I'll give you a
That's
shout. We can get together next week sometime. Thank you. Thank you,
Okay.
Chairman.
Thank you, Councilman. Any further questions from members of the council? Questions from members of the public? Questions from members of the public? Thank you, Chief. Appreciate the explanations. Bid number 3 is bid 2022-286 Charlie, City of Warwick, District 6 gasoline, low sulfur diesel, and ultra low sulfur diesel fuel. Good evening, Major.
Good evening. Major Lima, Warwick Police Department. The police department reviewed our 3 bids for the gasoline. We are recommending the bid be awarded to Roberts Energy LLC of Springfield, Mass. They had a bid at plus .0235 cents per gallon. If approved, financing would come from the police department operating budget code of 30-220, which is the gasoline budget, not to exceed a total amount of $340,000. The contract expires on April 9th of 2022. This would run from 1 year from April 10th, 2022 to April 9th, 2023.
Thank you, Major. Any questions from members of the committee? Questions from members of the council? Councilman Lattisaw.
Thank you, Chairman. Major, I'm not going to regurgitate this all over again, but I'll send you off an email, and hopefully we could get together one day next week too. I'd like to go through some of these, let's say, mathematical calculations with you next week. That'll be okay?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. All set, Chairman.
Thank you, Councilman. Any other questions from members of the council? Questions from members of the public? Questions from members of the public? Thank you. Moving on to the fourth item is bid 2019-208. Excuse me. Network connectivity. Good evening, Chris, correct?
That is correct. Thank you. Chris Kate, I'm the network manager for MIS. MIS requests under City Ordinance 612 to extend the award date on bid 2019-208 until June 30th, 2022, and to add an additional $142,400 to the bid, bringing the three-year bid total to $1,035,134.48. Cox and Crown Castle provide network equipment, network configuration services, and network transport for the 29 active buildings in the city. And I welcome any questions.
Thank you so much. Questions from members of the committee? Councilman Gebhardt.
Thanks for this. I just was wondering, sort of looking forward on this spend as we start to consolidate buildings down into less and less properties. So we should anticipate this in future years to start to decline?
I would anticipate that. And on top of that, MIS is looking at how we can use APRA funds to bring about some infrastructure changes to reduce the monthly cost of transport for the buildings that we continue to keep in use over the long term, the next 5-10 years.
Got it. So this is basically the infrastructure for the citywide network from point to point and all of our disparate.
That's right. Yeah, we're still working on the bid specs for whoever the next vendor will be to take over these services. And so in the interim, we have to continue paying Cox and Crown Castle for the services that we're using every month.
Got it. And what's the primary reason that they need to be interconnected? Is it for like legacy systems like Munis that are centrally hosted here? Or?
That's certainly part of it. Much like you might connect the rooms in your home with Ethernet to a central router. We use enterprise-grade services like that to connect the various buildings so that it acts like one large wide area network.
Got it. Okay, great, thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Any other questions from members of the committee? Questions from members of the council? Councilman Lattisaw.
Thank you, Chairman. So what would happen if the city council denied this increase?
I would think eventually Cox and Crown Castle would cut us off because we're not paying for the services that we're using. And
the reason for increasing this by $142,000?
We're still working on the bid specs for the next vendor who will handle these services. And so while we're formulating them, we are still within budget. So this is just to extend the current contracts we have and to continue paying for the services the city's utilizing and to keep things running smoothly.
So are you asking for spending authority up to $142,400, or is this the actual hard and fast number?
This is spending authority. The month-to-month bill is we budgeted around $22,100 per month, and it runs a little bit under that.
So there really isn't an option here unless you want to lose your connectivity, right? All right, thank you. Thank you, Chairman. I'm all set. Thank you, Director.
Thank you, Councilman. Any other questions for members of the council? Questions for members of the public? Questions for members of the public? Hearing none, if I could get everyone to go to the final item on the bid package, it's 2022-354. Because that exceeds the $50,000 ceiling, we will have a discussion on it. So it is in your...
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman, you have another one over 52,000, over 50,000.
Oh, yes, I'm so sorry. Thank you. Thank you all so much. So I'll retract what I just said. I'm going to go to, I'm going to go to bid 2022-333, Flock Automatic License Plate Readers. I do apologize. That is found on page 20. And I'd like to call on the Chief Connor. Thank you.
Good evening, Chairman. Colonel Brad Connor for the Police Department. The Police Department is requesting a 56-6 exception to bid to award the purchase of 10 automatic license plate readers to Flock Safety. The Flock system captures still photographs of license plates and vehicle characteristics as they travel on public roads, and they allow investigators to search footage by vehicle plate, type, make, color, and other unique attributes. Investigators are also able to input license plates and vehicle data to receive hits and alert within seconds of a camera detecting that vehicle. The program is used to locate stolen vehicles, vehicles associated with wanted, missing, or endangered persons, and vehicles associated with criminal activity. Flock Safety focuses on privacy and security and is built on a foundation of public trust and transparency. All data is encrypted and stored on an AWS GovCloud for maximum security compliance. Data is only stored for 30 days and is then permanently deleted. No data is ever sold to third parties. Use of the system is strictly guided by department policy. These cameras will never be used for traffic enforcement, as they do not have the capability to track speed or identify unregistered or uninsured vehicles. And these devices can never be used for facial recognition. As you may be aware, this technology is currently being used in Cranston, Woonsocket, and Pawtucket, which is adding 60 cameras to the system. In the short time that they've used these cameras, those departments have seen arrests increase and have had a record number of recovered stolen property. Pricing for the cameras is $2,500 per camera per year, plus a one-time $250 implementation fee for each camera. Flock requires a 2-year contract, which will commence upon installation of the cameras. Total cost will be $52,500 for 10 cameras, $27,500 being paid in year 1 and $25,000 being paid in year 2. Funding, if approved, would come from federal asset forfeiture funds, budget code 3640400. I also would like to add that when we initiated this project, we committed to 100% transparency. So our first effort was to meet with the administration and propose this initiative. And upon getting approval to move forward, we reach out to various members as well as Council President McAllister to advise that this was the route we were going forward with. We welcome open public discussion on the topic. Would certainly field any questions that anybody from the public or the council may have. I do have with me Craig Lynch from Flock Safety, who can answer any of the more technical aspects of the program. If approved, we intend, while we get ready to initiate the program, to have full transparency, to meet with various stakeholders in the community, including our community groups, as well as publicizing this on our website and our Facebook and our other social media, to let the public know what the capabilities are with these cameras, to ensure that they're not for traffic enforcement. We're not spying on anybody, but this is, quite frankly, not just a good tool for the police department, it's a good tool for the citizens of Warwick. We're plagued with property crime. Catalytic converter thefts are through the roof. And I can point to several other notable cases where young children have been abducted. A recent case by somebody who is a Warwick resident. These cameras have proven in other cities and other states to be force multipliers and allow us to protect the citizens of Warwick much better. Again, this is not intended to enforce traffic violations. It's more merely just a useful investigative tool that takes pictures of the back of a vehicle, and including the license plate, which is open view. I'll have any questions if you have any, sir.
Thank you, Chief. Before I call on the committee and even myself, I did have the Council President request an opportunity to make comments. Council President.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Colonel. Yeah, I just wanted to also highlight, and the Colonel hit on a lot of these points, that the Colonel has done a lot of research on this, and he met with the administration, he met with myself, the chairman of the Finance Committee as well. And the issues that we were concerned about, he's brought out tonight. So we do want to stress that these cameras, they were not going to be used for traffic enforcement. That's the first thing we want to get out there. As the Colonel mentioned, they don't track speed or anything like that. So they're not to give speeding tickets or any type of traffic violations. They're not going to identify unregistered or uninsured vehicles as well. And they'll never be used for facial recognition. So that was the concerns that myself and the chairman had. And right off the bat, the Colonel addressed those issues. He put it here, again, put it out in the public as well. This is only to read license plates that are evident in plain sight. So when you're driving down, they'll be able to read those license plates. I asked the Colonel, what other communities have used this? Our next door neighbor, Cranston, has these, and they've been very successful with using them. Again, this is just another tool to help the residents of Warwick. I think the Colonel hit on something very important. I mean, this could be used in emergency situations like in a kidnapping, where they're looking for a specific car, a specific license plate, and the kidnapping could happen anywhere in the state or another state, and they're coming through Warwick, and this could save lives. So the privacy issue, those types of concerns were concerns of ours, but I think the Colonel does an excellent job of explaining exactly what these cameras will and will not do. So it does have my support, and again, the transparency is going to continue. That's very important to all of us here. So members of the public, even if you're not here tonight, if you have additional questions and stuff like that, we are available to talk about that. But we just want to make sure that we frame it right, exactly what these cameras will and will not do. So I just want to make that statement. So I appreciate the time, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. President. And Chief, you made a comment when I met with you, and you highlighted that other cities and municipalities are using this technology, and exactly as the president said, there was a concern of, well, can these cameras be in any way misused? You expressed they couldn't. And the one that I remember, I asked you a question. I said, well, let's say if there was an incident at a school, whether it be a kidnapping or something worse, I said the suspect flees, but there's a general description, but not an exact model and make of the car. You said that information alone, if a car goes down an artery where that camera is set up, that gives you a pinpoint location of a possible lead, instead of going through the entire coastline and inner of the city, the entire border of the city. That could help, where you could take few resources to go and address that issue. And therefore, while you're still looking at the other city, that helps narrow it down, because it'll send you your department an instant notification of a possible identity of that vehicle.
That's correct. If we have the license plate and put that into the system, as soon as that license plate hits a camera, whether it's in Warwick, Cranston, Woonsocket, or any of the other cities that are adopting this program, we would get an alert within seconds, and we could direct officers to that location without having to take an entire city's worth of police officers and put them in a specific area. The other thing that you mentioned too, which is a likely scenario, is figure, if you will, most businesses have security cameras on the front of their stores, and what we've been experiencing in the city of Warwick are catalytic converter thefts. So at night, we've seen hundreds of these videos where a vehicle where you can't see the plate will pull in, somebody dressed all in dark with a hoodie will go under a vehicle, take one or two catalytic converters from the lot, and take off. The system allows us to put in a time frame and an area, and allow us to put in indicators like four-wheel drive, two-door pickup truck with a ladder rack and a bumper sticker, and we can narrow it down. Now, is that enough to affect an arrest? No, but it's a heck of a investigative tool. When we can put that vehicle in there, and then we can do things like identify the driver versus the video. It's just a wonderful tool. Otherwise, we're just going on a vague description of a vehicle with no other leads.
Thank you. And I think you said it perfectly in our meeting, and if I misquote you, I do apologize, but I remember you saying it's what this is another layer of safety and security for our residents, which of course is something that we all aim for. Questions, comments from members of the committee? I saw that. Did you have your hand up, Councilman Foley?
Yes, thank you. Chief, we had talked about this, I think, when Cranston first put it in, because my ward abuts Cranston, and one of those cameras was on the line, as it were.
Yes.
My concern is, and it might seem odd coming from me, but I'm a history and English teacher, and 1984 really hit a chord with me and Big Brother. And I'm not making any allegations, but my concern is, are there any lawsuits currently against this technology? Because it does for 30 days store information on random people who have committed no crimes. So could you address that? Do you know of any?
I know of no legal successes against the flock safety system. I believe the ACLU in other states have attempted and have failed.
Makes it so much more efficient in policing and giving a tool to our police officers and making it harder for the criminals. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilman Gebhardt.
Thanks, Chief, for the thorough position paper and description, and for the chat earlier. I think the one thing that I just wanted to bring out on the record that we haven't talked about here yet is that you talk in your position paper about, departmental policies related to the use of this. So I wonder if you could just talk a little bit about what your intentions are in terms of, how you will, so to say, police the use of this technology. And
Absolutely. So as an accredited agency, we are, all of our actions and policy are guided by policy. Certainly, we would want the same protection with this system as well, to prevent abuse of the system and to prevent limitations. The policy also talks about, our transparency portal. So we have in our policy that we're actually going to give the information out to the public. So a member of the public, if they were concerned about what our policy said, could click on our policy on our website, and they could review the policy in our guidance. They could also look at the system and how it's being used. We're going to offer statistics on the success stories that we've had with it, and the number of stolen vehicles and recovered stolen merchandise that we're getting with it. So again, it is transparency, and again, to your point, very much guided by policy.
And just to follow up on that, so in terms of that, the transparency portal and the information that you're going to put out, who's going to own that in the department, and who should we follow up with just to have?
We haven't decided yet. We will have somebody that will be the overall administrator of the system. Our web guys will obviously be the ones that put it on the sites and link to the portal. But there's so many different administrative rights here. All of the officers will have the ability to receive alerts on their cell phones or any of the dispatch computers, but will have restricted access to who can actually go into the system and hit and put out information to try to glean any hits from it.
Got it. It's gone. I'll let you know if I come back up with it. Thank you, Chief.
Yes, sir.
I'm right here. He can slap me around. I see quite a few hands up. I'm going to call on Councilwoman Travis. Councilwoman Travis.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I know we spoke earlier, Chief, and being an employee for RITT, I asked you a couple of questions, especially about cameras, because I'm familiar with some of the cameras. Now, like you said, this camera is not going to be used for revenue coming in to get tickets for speeding or anything like that. Just so the constituents that are listening will understand that. Because I know Providence and Providence and Pawtucket do that a lot.
This will not generate any revenue from the city.
Okay. And then, of course, we have cameras with the school buses that take pictures of who's driving the car or that goes by the school bus. That's another issue.
Yep.
So that's not going to be anything like that. You're just focusing on the plates. But I think the people are wondering, what are you going to do about the plate? Just the plate? Just going to gather all these plates? And they're asking, like, for what reason? And I know you explained some of them, but I don't think some people still understand what you're looking for or why.
Yes, so this system is not a video recorder. It's going to take snapshots as vehicles as they drive away from the camera. and it's going to store that data for up to 30 days, and then in 30 days they drop out.
Okay.
And then what we can do is if we have a wanted vehicle stolen, you report your vehicle stolen, we would enter that. If that vehicle were to be seen by one of the cameras, it would alert us within seconds. The other tool that we have is that if we have a suspect vehicle wanted for a kidnapping, say, we could put that vehicle identifying information, whether it be a plate or description, into the camera system. We can dial it down to a location and a time frame, and it would spit out images of any similar vehicles to give us leads on those cars.
I understand. I seen these in Cranston anyway. So are they going to be at certain, they're like intersections or?
Yeah, so
Scattered.
if approved, we'll have our intelligence unit meet with representative from Flock's Safety, and they will decide the best places to put these cameras.
Okay.
We don't have locations yet.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Before he hits me, Councilman Gebhardt.
I thought of it. If approved tonight, what's the lead time on procuring, selection, and go
Sure,
live?
it's about 6 to 8 weeks, and that gives us, a month and a half to 2 months to get the word out there, to discuss it in more detail with our stakeholders, and it gives our team time to figure out exactly where we're going to put these things, and then the install process.
Thank you. I saw when Councilman Foley was speaking, Councilman Ricks. Councilman Ricks.
Thank you. I have a few questions. The first one is more procedural. Is Flock in any way specifically licensed by the state of Rhode Island?
Craig, do you want to come up here? Again, this is Craig Lynch from Flock Safety.
Craig Lynch from Flock Safety. What was the question?
Is Flock in any way licensed or approved by the state of Rhode Island?
We're a national company. We work in the United States. We're overseeing public roads with these cameras. So we are connected to the FBI NCIC database, which is a national firm. So we are approved on a national level to use these cameras on public roads.
And it's my understanding that
Excuse me, I'm sorry. Could you speak louder into the camera? Louder into the microphone, and could you lean into the microphone when you give your answers?
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you. And it's my understanding that although your company has claims that it is superior to your competitors in different ways, there are other companies out there that use ALPR technology.
Yes.
And those other competitors, it's my understanding, do not have any contracts with any police departments in the state of Rhode Island at this time?
To my knowledge, yes.
Okay. A brief statement on the record then that I understand that the position in requesting approval under Section 56.6, sole source provider, is based on the argument that because there are no other competitors here in Rhode Island that have contracts with other police departments or municipalities, therefore Flock is a sole source provider. However, I think that this should go through the normal bidding process, because even if competitors don't have contracts with municipalities in Rhode Island right now, I don't believe that that should prevent us from seeking bids from other providers with ALPR cameras, learning about the different systems, and being able to compare whether it's an apples to apples comparison or learning more about the different offers, different prices. I think that the bidding process, if we decide to go in this direction, would tend to produce the most cost-effective results and have a community discussion on what all of our options are. So putting that aside for the moment, I understand from the position paper and from some of the materials provided, I believe it's from Flock's website or otherwise documents that Flock has made publicly available, that these images, quote, can never be used for facial recognition. I'm not sure if that statement is accurate.
That is 100% accurate. There's no facial recognition on this system, and there never will be. Can I just address one thing that you just previously said?
Certainly.
So yes, we are a sole source provider. If you go into the technology and what we do, specifically with LPR technology and machine learning, and within the system and the transparency portal that we presented, and connecting to other departments within Rhode Island, we are a sole sourced provider. We can do what no other LPR company can do, and we can send you that letter, if that would help.
Does Flock have a monopoly on the ability to use artificial intelligence or machine learning?
Can you ask that question again, please?
Does Flock have a monopoly on the ability to use artificial intelligence or machine learning?
No, sir. There's other functions of the system that are deemed as a sole source.
And competitors use ALPR technology?
Correct. There's just other facets to the system that we have that no other system does.
I understand. And I certainly understand pride in one's company and pride in one's company's accomplishments that make that company unique. However, it would be my position that if the city bid is in relation to ALPR technology, then a 56.6 would not be appropriate, as competitors also use ALPR technology, and those competitors may likewise have claims that they could be considered a sole source provider based on what makes their company unique. And so I think that the bidding process would be most appropriate there. But to get back to the facial recognition, is it possible, or would it be part of the department's policy when a still image is taken, to similar to how the department on occasion seeks assistance from the public by posting the image on Facebook or the like, could these images from the Flock cameras be publicized in that manner?
So the Warwick Police Department does not use facial recognition. So as you suggested, we receive video and still photos off of video cameras from Nest cameras, Ring doorbells, security cameras at the big box stores as part of our investigations daily. And currently we do not use facial recognition. We do not have facial recognition software, and we don't intend on getting that. So it really doesn't matter if we have still images of Flock cameras or not. We don't intend on using that. And Flock currently does not have it.
I do appreciate that. I would just like to point out that if still images are being captured, and then if, as part of the system itself, it does not automatically distort or censor the face, then there is little that would prevent, in the event of a third party accessing the image, being able to use facial recognition, especially as that's very common with, for instance, Facebook having facial recognition. And another example concern is that I understand that there would be a strict policy as to never share or sell to third parties, but a concern of mine is that there are various ways that a third party could access the system. I understand that the images would be stored on AWS, which is run by Amazon.
Yeah, it's GovCloud.
And I understand that AWS is a very secure provider, but they are not infallible.
All of their data is AES 256 encrypted.
And that technology has never once been breached?
I can't answer that.
I understand. And putting aside the illegal methods that one may use to attempt to access that sort of data, another concern is that any data could theoretically be accessible, or virtually any data could theoretically be accessible when it is being stored through the civil system. For example, from personal experience as an attorney, I would imagine, just by way of example, that folks visiting casinos may not expect that third parties would be able to access information such as video surveillance of themselves playing at the slot machines or in the parking lot of a casino, or information on their rewards card showing when they've been shopping or eating out or the like. But I personally know about situations where in the civil context, not the criminal context, a court has upheld a subpoena where that sort of information has been requested, and then gigs and gigs of data have been transferred and allowed over the course of months for that sort of third-party access and surveillance. And I would suggest that if it's a matter, even in a civil matter, where, and I'm not saying that there isn't a process here, because there's absolutely a process here, but even in the civil context, not the criminal context, it is quite possible, in my opinion, that if an attorney or if a litigant were to request data through a subpoena, get approval through the court, they could be able to access this information for use against a person in a civil matter. I do have some other concerns, but I know that there are other members of the council who have not yet spoken, so I would yield for the moment.
Thank you, Councilman. To kind of pique the interest on one of the councilman's comments, and I do thank you for yielding the time. I will go to someone else, but the information the flock system is going to take is, as a car drives by, it's going to photo it's the make of the car, like the car itself, the rear of the car, and the license plate.
Yeah, the way they set up the cameras is to get the rear of the vehicle. So the likelihood of getting a driver or a front seat passenger face to face would only be if it was, I guess, an accident. If it was, if it was taking the picture and there happened to be somebody on a going the other way. But the intent is to get the rear identifier of the vehicle.
And those license plates are for everyone to see. That's the registration and identification of the car.
That's correct.
And pretty much anyone can take a picture of that.
Correct. Anybody can take a picture, stand on the side of the road. It's a public roadway.
Set up.
And again, this data, again, is we do not share it. It is encrypted, and it is automatically deleted after 30 days.
Certainly. And, you know, I think the councilman also brought up another good point that we did discuss. It's the sense of having the state, all the municipalities in the state on one united system.
Yeah.
So that the information sharing is sudden and instant, compared to, as you know, like let's say the city of Providence had a database system that was separate from Warwick. You guys can't share information on data of potentially dangerous criminals. So what this does is this is a instantaneous, what's the word I'm looking? Well, anyways, this is instantaneous between all municipalities that share it.
We did research other automatic
Median.
license plate readers, and you know there is ALPR technology out there. Some of the tech actually mounts to police vehicles and will allow an officer to drive through the Warwick Mall parking lot and essentially run every single plate as they go by. And then if one's unregistered, they can sit in the parking lot and wait till it pulls out. Other states are using that technology. We feel that that was more intrusive than this, and that wasn't a tech that we wanted to. Plus, it doesn't have interoperability with other communities, which we think is important.
Thank you, Chief. Further questions? Councilman Sinapi.
So my understanding is that the company lets each community that utilizes its cameras dictate their own rules, at least besides the 30-day deletion default.
Sure, there is a model policy that we've received from the city of Cranston that we're looking to adopt. We may make some subtle changes, which would just be indicative of maybe just the way we patrol or the way we administer the system.
So the ACLU raised concerns about mission creep and the fact that the scope of use for the cameras isn't restricted legislatively. We could address both those concerns by codifying the scope of use for the cameras and the data they collect. Would you have any issue with that?
I believe there is a proposed bill in the House, and I believe it's in the interest of myself and the rest of the chiefs of police to have a discussion on that. There are parts of that bill that cause concern and maybe a little bit restrictive, but certainly are amenable to codifying this, whether it be an ordinance or at the state level.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilman McElroy.
Thank you. I have a question about the information that is gathered and stored for up to 30 days. Would that be considered a public record?
No.
Okay. In legislation, it's stated it's not a public record.
I'd have to get you more information on that, but we don't have the capability of just running a report and getting 2 days worth of data, of pictures, and then doling them out. We retrieve information by putting in specific pieces and then getting that information out of the system.
Right. But you don't know for sure if state law says it's is or is not a public record.
No, I can't answer that at this point.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilman Lattisaw.
Thank you, Chairman. So I do have concerns with this, and with all due respect, Chief, and I mean that sincerely, it's with all due respect. I've heard policy, I've heard never, I heard can't, I heard won't. And for people who have served on this council throughout the time that I have and since, they've heard me say numerous times that policy is set up by people. It's set up by administrators. It's set up by legislators. And policies change. When people change, positions change, leadership changes, elected officials change, policies change, or they certainly can change. With technology, particularly the technology that we're speaking to today, I disagree with the words or the statements that never, it will never be able to do this. It can't do that. Because it's my belief that technology can be changed and policies can be changed and purposes can change. To say that at the end of 30 days, this information is erased and is gone, even with this gray hair, what I've learned is that it's never gone. When that rascal is up there in the cloud, it is there. You may not be able to, you and I, certainly me, would not be able to enter into my computer or anyone else's computer and find out what was deleted and stored up there. But this happens all the time. Deletes from cell phones, deletes from computers, and all of a sudden they're found. So this information is out there. We say, or it was said, that this technology can't, won't, and will not be used for monitoring speeding. But I find it interesting in the first, second, third paragraph where it speaks to they are able to cover 2 lanes of traffic in vehicles traveling up to 100 miles an hour. If they can capture a vehicle and know it's traveling up to 100 miles an hour, how would it not have the capability of being involved in a policy change at some way down the road and a technology change that now all of a sudden...
Can I answer that, sir?
Sure.
So that's speaking to the aperture, the the ability of the system to take a still photograph with clarity. It's not measuring the speed. It doesn't know if the vehicle is going 60, 80, or 100. It's just saying that the camera has the ability to take a photo that we can view at 100 miles an hour. Beyond 100 miles an hour, it's probably going to be blurry and not be able to be picked up by the camera system. But it's not measuring speed and will not have the ability to measure speed.
Fair enough. So, Chairman, I'm going to kind of like reserve my opportunity to speak to this further, because this is one of the issues that in the past couple of days, actually, I've received calls on from constituents. And they've presented some very interesting information to me, which has me, I'm not sure. So I'd like to reserve my right for further comment after we hear from anyone else on the council or members of the public. But I would also have to concur with Councilman Ricks's statement that based upon the information that he's provided and ascertained, that this doesn't appear to step up to the benchmark of a 56.6. From what he said, 56.6 is basically reserved for sole source provider. So having said that, I'll step back and hear from other colleagues on the council and members of the public. Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you, Councilman. So from my understanding, all council members have gone through once, so I saw Councilman Sinapi raise his hand again, so I'll call on Councilman Sinapi to speak. Thank you.
So, assuming this passes, I'm going to docket a ordinance to dictate the scope of use for this. Obviously, I don't plan on drafting it unilaterally, so any input from others is welcome, and it should go without saying that it'll be done hand in hand with the administration and the chief. So keep that in mind in regards to any concerns regarding scope of use, given that we'd be able to dictate them, which means you'd also be able to dictate what's kept, how long it's kept, et cetera, and what's obtained in the first place, and what it's used for. And as far as the bid process is concerned, I admit I'm no expert on the matter. I would defer to the solicitor. As long as he says it's fine to come to us, then I have no grounds to say otherwise.
Thank you, Councilman. So Walsh.
Under the provisions of the Code of Ordinances 56.6, there's an exception to some of the procurement that is allowed when essentially two major situations are available. One is when there's work to the disadvantage of the city, and the other is to prevent when, if not doing so, would prevent a contract award in time to avoid some public emergency. So the discretion that the council members need to interpret is whether those situations apply to the situation that's presented to justify the exception to the bid process that was presented here. Specifically, just to give the precise language, is 56.6 is an exception to notice requirement. It states, in any case where compliance with the provisions of this chapter relative to newspaper publication and posting of notices would work to the disadvantage of the city or would prevent a purchase or contract award in time to avoid or alleviate a public emergency, then purchases and contracts may be made without public notices and newspaper publication provided for in the following manner. And it lays out the process on how to do that. So that it's up to the discretion of, often we encounter these in sole source situations, but it's really up to the discretion here of the council if it's truly applicable.
Thank you. I would like to pose a question to either the chief or to the representative. Let's say if this went to bid and we know that there's already municipalities that neighbor us that use this technology. if another business was to put in for the bid, do the open share and use the same server to notify the other municipalities? Or will it be once they leave the other municipality, we don't have access to all that information? Let's say there is a situation involving a child in a car in the city in a municipality. Once it crosses into our state lines, we are using a different vendor. Will that information cross over with our vendor?
Not to my knowledge, no.
Yeah, can you please go up to the microphone and give that a definite answer, please?
No.
And identify yourself again.
My name is Craig Lynch from Flock Safety, and the database within Flock Safety, whether it's Cranston, Pawtucket, Woonsocket, Tiverton, I won't name the agencies that are planning on coming on board, but there are a number of them. If they will not be connected to another network, Flock Safety is proprietary to its own network, and we will never share with any other network.
So let's say another federal, because you mentioned earlier the FBI, another federal organization doesn't act as a conduit for that. It is literally just communication between the state of Rhode Island and the municipalities using the Flock system.
That is correct.
Thank you. Councilman Ricks.
Thank you, Chair. First, I would just suggest that perhaps this is all better held until we have the framework in place, not too dissimilar from how we have, as a council, approached other particularly complicated and sometimes controversial issues. I'd also just point out that sometimes more data sharing is not necessarily a good thing because, for starters, the concern about a private company effectively having a monopoly, but also because the sharing of data does raise privacy concerns. I actually have more concerns about the oversharing of data than I would, for instance, the facial recognition aspect of this, because personally, as a person with prosopagnosia, I think that it is important for some facial recognition technologies to be advanced in order to help those with that particular set of difficulties, which is about 2.5% of the population, more or less. But putting that discussion aside, I think that if we're talking about cameras, then we should also have a discussion on the table about where would Warwick intend to go, if ever, when it comes to traffic enforcement cameras. The night program, which...
As of right now, Councilman, we're speaking on this item, the Flock cameras.
Oh, certainly. So I'll limit my discussion on that. But I suppose getting back more directly to this item on the ALPR cameras, I would have a concern that if we were to, as a council, use our discretion to determine that 56.6 applies, we could potentially be getting ourselves in a situation where if a competitor sees the situation a little bit differently and says that they should have been given an opportunity to bid, then we may get ourselves into a situation where we have to be defending that type of a decision. So for all of those reasons, I would request that this item be given a PCR number and would request that the item be held till such a time that we can have a bid through the normal process, as well as a regulatory framework in place to prevent the type of mission creep that Councilman Sinapi brought up.
Thank you, Councilman. So there was a request for a PCR.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
So before we assign a PCR to this, I would request that we allow opportunity to the members of the public to comment.
I was getting to that, Mr.
Thank you.
Councilman. Thank you. So we had a request for a PCR, but the first thing I want to do is allow, since public comment has begun and comment has been extensive, I do want to give the opportunity to the rest of the council, if so be it, or the public to make comments on this. If I remember correctly, Mr. Solicitor, when a PCR request is made, is it voted upon in this committee or is it given?
We can assign the PCR now and continue the discussion on this particular item under the, it being assigned the PCR merely separates it from the rest of the consent calendar. So at the conclusion of the discussion on this, the committee should entertain a recommendation to that particular PCR, and then we can revert back to the remainder of the consent calendar.
Thank you so much. So with that being said, to the members of the council, we heard the request from the councilman. That will be voted on once the communication finishes, once the discussion on this topic finishes on this bid. Any other members of the council before I go to the public?
Madam Clerk, the PCR number, please. 2722.
2722, thank you. Is there any questions or comments from members of the public? Please step up to the microphone, your name and ward, please. Thank you, Sergeant at Arms.
Good evening. My name is Mark Janess. I'm a resident of Warwick. I'm also a professor of strategy at the Naval War College, where my focus and my expertise is on information warfare. I've been an advisor to the United States Army in Afghanistan, and I regularly go to China before COVID to talk with our Chinese adversaries, or at least the Chinese military, on a wide array of subjects, one of which is information warfare. And I hate coming to these meetings. I have a busy life. I do not want to come to these meetings. But when I saw this today, at the last minute, I called Ed Lattiser and talked to him a bit about it, and he strongly suggested I come. So thank you, Ed, for having me. And I've been very impressed, Jeremy, Rex, with your points and with others about the potential problems involved in this. I've been dealing with this area for a long period of time. And one of the things that really bothers me and that frightens me is the term intended. Now, I really support our police, particularly the Warwick police. They've done a fine job. And I understand in that profession, it is all about security and enhancing the tools with which they can provide greater security for the residents of Warwick. I'm all for that. But I've been in too many countries, in totalitarian countries, that use this technology to control, to surveil, and to deny people their basic civil liberties. And I don't think the members of this committee are taking that seriously enough. I'll give you one example. When I was in China last time in 2019, when you crossed the street, there was a screen across the street that literally took pictures of individuals. And if you were jaywalking, they literally put the person's name through facial recognition up on the screen, and they gave them social demerits. And if you got enough of these social demerits, you were fired from your position and you were given all kinds of penalties. All right? This is the state that we find as the most critical potential enemy to our country. And the reason we do is because they are antithetical to our ideas of liberty. And we are beginning to, in the name of scare tactics from private companies who are telling you we have to protect our children, we have to make sure that our streets are safe. We're all for that, but it's demagoguery. Because what it is, it's creating a surveillance state, a police state, that none of you, I don't know if any of you have been to China and have to deal with the Chinese government. You are on constant surveillance 24/7. I know these are small steps, but with small steps come bigger steps. And you have got to look at the long-term consequence of this. And it's very, very dangerous to do so. You are literally sacrificing the civil liberties of your residents for just a tiny, tiny bit more security. And then what you're doing is you're placing all that information in a private security firm, not a government security firm, but a private security firm. I've had clearances for 20 years. The Russians and Chinese government know more about me than the police colonel here will ever be able to know. Why? Because they've hacked into Department of Defense systems, our communication systems, our computer systems, and they know a ton about us. And anyone who served in the service for the last 15 years, your information is known to them as well. All right? So what you're doing is you're taking the word of a private sector company who's in it for profit, saying we are secure. You name one financial institution in this country that has not been hacked into. If the Department of Defense has been hacked into, then anyone can be hacked into. And then we hear that it's all encrypted. I can give you 20 friends of mine within 30 miles that can break encryptions. We do this all the time. We have agencies devoted to breaking encryptions. This is not something that's invincible. Do not let them sell you a bill of goods and let them use scare tactics talking to you about security, when in reality, it's about making money. And then again, I am not impugning the motives of our police department. This is their profession. They will use every tool they can to do the best job they can. I agree with that. But it is up to you. It is up to you to be a balance. How much of our liberty are you going to sacrifice in the name of potentially increasing our day-to-day security? Read the Constitution. Read the Declaration of Independence. This nation was built on civil liberties. And you right now are going to decide to take a piece of that away from the residents of Warwick. Understand the consequences, the long-term consequences of this. And when the Colonel and others talk about the intended use of this technology, wake up. Intended use is good for the short run. In the long run, technology increases and advances. We are now talking about big data. We're talking about quantum mechanics and quantum use of technology in order to be able to use data in real time and be able to understand and compute and analyze data faster than we've ever imagined. And this is the information and this is the technology that is available to us now. And what you're doing is you're walking hand in hand with a private company whose motive is to make money and the pure motives of our police department, and yet what you're doing is you're willing to sacrifice our civil liberties. I am not over-exaggerating this. I really am not. This is the small step that people take with the best of intentions that will lead you down the path of hell. Stop it now. I've been working on this for decades. You want to talk to me about it afterwards or anytime, I'll give you my phone number. But this is the wrong thing to do in the wrong place at the wrong time. Do not do this. Thank you. And by the way, every time you ask a question to the Colonel or to the representative from the company, particularly the Colonel says, I don't know that information yet. What is that telling you? That this hasn't been thought out yet. Right? There's a lot of information. And when even a well-intentioned individual says, either I don't know that information or we intend not to use this, their intentions may be pure. The reality of the situation is times change, technology evolves, and it gets more and more pervasive. Stop it now. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Foley.
Sir, before you leave the podium, over here, Councilman Foley, could you get us your credentials to our
Mark Ginest,
liaison?
look it on the internet. My bio is on the internet.
Internet? All right.
Yep, on the
Thank you,
Naval
sir.
War College. Mark, M-A-R-C, Genest, G-E-N-E-S-T. And it's Naval War College. If you want to buy some of my books, it's on Amazon.
Thank you. Is there anyone else from the public that wishes to speak? Please step up to the microphone and identify yourself.
My name is Pauline Genest. I also am a Warwick resident. I'm not going to be as, my credentials are not the same. So there are just a few things that were said this evening that I think that we should be really wary of. One of the things that the Colonel did talk about was that the cameras will be brought in under department policies, and I think both Mr. Lattiser and my husband have clearly demonstrated that policies change. The policies change with administrations. They change with who is the colonel, who is not the colonel, who is the chief, who's on the city council. So bringing something in today with the intent for the future, you can't really rely on it. One of the things is that a lot of the wording of tonight's discussion was what these cameras will and won't do versus what these cameras can and cannot do. And one of the things that was brought up earlier was that these cameras can only see the license plate at the back of the car. However, when you go onto the website of the company, they actually elaborate within the third paragraph of their mission statement that they can see the entirety of the car all the way down to a ski rack, who's in the car, the tires, the background. So it's a very detailed, focused picture. So it's not just reading the backs of the license plates. Tonight, the agenda clearly says that this is a discussion regarding reading the backs of the license plates. It does not in any way tell the public that this technology has the opportunity to do a heck of a lot more. Again, we go back to intent. The intent may be today to read just the license plate. However, the technology can do a heck of a lot more. And it's just a matter of changing your policy to allow that to happen. Because once those cameras are up, the technology is there. It's a matter of using your algorithms to change what you're looking at. And that is why we need to be concerned about whether or not this is okay. The other thing is, I'm sorry, I did not catch the name of the individual from the private company. However, one of the things that he did say is that his company does not share information with other companies, which is yet another tactic to put a little fire under us as a city to get on board, because Cranston and Pawtucket are currently looking into these technologies and have those cameras up. However, one of the things that was a little misleading is that currently the ACLU is filing charges against both Cranston and Pawtucket regarding the fact that these are targeting and profiling individuals. And that is an issue that is currently happening right now. So to the Colonel's credit, no, nobody has won. However, it's still happening. So yes, nobody has won, but it is happening as we speak. It's in real time. So when our private company friend here says, we only speak with other companies that are owned by us, he's negating the fact that we have just spent a lot of money as a state to put up all kinds of infrastructure to change our entire highway system. We do have a matrix system going on where we see the silver alerts as individuals, but that technology is a statewide technology that helps our police and our state police as well. So the idea that only one private company can go into each district and talk about what's happening in real time is kind of lost on the fact that we have invested so much money in the infrastructure just in the last 4 or 5 years, correct? Since Raimondo started redoing all the gantries. We all know what those gantries are. You see at the matrices, you see there's an amber alert, there's a silver alert. It alerts us. But that technology is also used by the police. So we don't have to rely on a private company to do that. You had said that tonight, I'm assuming you're the solicitor of the city? I have no idea. You had said that we have to demonstrate that there is a disadvantage of the city to allow this no bid contract or a public emergency. There is no public emergency happening right now that we need to get this. So although it is at the discretion of the individuals here, I think we've heard at least 3 individuals who've demonstrated that there is no emergency, that there is time to discuss this. We don't need to vote on this today. Let's have a real serious discussion about whether or not we want to put these cameras up that have the potential to create a police state that I'm sure that nobody in this room wants to be a part of. Again, our friend from the private company said, if we don't work on this now, well, we're going to lose the opportunity to discuss what's happening in real time with the city of Cranston and Pawtucket and whoever else has these cameras. And it sounds a heck of a lot like what Cox is saying to us. There's going to be a $142,000 increase in our bill, or we lose our services. It's a threat by a private company saying you are no longer going to have something that you have if you don't go with us. We did have 2 people already discuss the monopoly of the data going into a private company, so I don't think I need to go any further into that. And Ed did bring up an issue, I'm sorry, Councilman Lattiser, did bring up an issue earlier, which I think was kind of pushed under the rug, where he said the pictures in the first paragraph of the 100 miles an hour. Well, in order for somebody to have the documentation to say our pictures are clear at 100 miles an hour, they had to take pictures at 50 miles an hour, 60 miles an hour, 70 miles an hour, 80, 90, and so on, in order to determine whether or not they were clear. So they do have the technology to say, hey, our cameras work very well at 50, 60, 70, 80. It's just a matter of changing the algorithm in order for it to become a traffic camera. And those are the only points that I would like to make tonight. So thank you very much for giving me the time. Have a good night.
Thank you so much. Is there anyone else from the public that would like to speak on bid 2022-333? Anyone else from the public? Mr. Solicitor, does this go PCR, or do we vote to make it a PCR to send it to the floor?
We have assigned it a PCR. The committee, it is PCR 2722. And the committee, if all discussion amongst members and the public are ready, it would be the appropriate time to make a committee recommendation amongst the three of you, which would be forwarded to the full body later this evening.
Would someone like to make that motion?
So moved.
A motion to move bid 2022-3, now PCR 27-22, assign it a PCR and move it to the consent calendar, to the floor.
Are we asked, I guess is there a recommendation, or are we sending it to the full body with no recommendation?
My motion is with no recommendation.
Okay. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
We have a motion. We have a second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Give me a moment while I update my notes. Yep. Okay. So okay, now if we can go to bid number 18, which is bid 2022-354, Utilize Waste Management Transfer Station. Good evening.
Good evening.
It's all yours, Christie. Thank you.
Public Works is requesting permission to deliver some of the household waste that we pick up to Waste Management at the end of Jefferson Boulevard. Director Earls has reached out to them. It would be $31 a ton, up to 60 ton a day for us to do that. With that being said, it would reduce the amount of overtime that we are currently paying. Our drivers are working, some of them from 5:30 in the morning till 7, 8, 9 o'clock at night. It will also cut down on the wear and tear on the vehicles, the time that they're spending to go up to the landfill, dump their truck, and then get back to the route. This will allow them to basically dump their truck and return to the route. Right now, it takes approximately an hour and a half for them to do that, depending on the traffic up at the Johnston landfill, where they have to get in line. This would probably allow them to dump their truck and head back to their route in 20, 25 minutes.
What's the logistical plan for this, Christie or Director? Once, what's the sitting time? What's the plan to clean it up after?
Well, this is a temporary proposal, right? This is so we have another option on those nights where we're running late, or we anticipate we're going to be late, or we know that we have fewer trucks. We would implement it on those days. And Waste Management has only agreed to take 50 to 60 tons a day, which is roughly half of what we produce. So we're not bringing all of our trash there. There's still going to be the trips back and forth to Johnston, but this will give us that opportunity for them to just quickly drop and then get back into their routes. And like Christie said, kind of save us that time. And we would look to implement this probably as early as next week if things go well tonight.
And what is the plan? Like, so let's say you have to use this plan, dump the trash, get on the routes. What is the cleanup plan in the yard to move it to the waste site?
No, we would take it right to the transfer station is on Jefferson Boulevard, is right off of Jefferson Boulevard. So our trucks would go out into their routes, pick up the trash, go to Jefferson Boulevard, dump at the transfer station, and then go back. And Waste Management would then haul it up to Johnston for us.
Right. Waste Management then takes it and.
Right, so essentially we're paying Waste Management $31 a ton to allow us to drop our waste there, and they haul it up to Johnston for us. We still pay the tipping fees up at Johnston, but Waste Management is doing that haul. They essentially consolidate our trash into a larger vehicle, and then they haul it up there.
You
And
gave the members of the committee, and I don't know if the rest of the council got it, but members of the committee pictures. Is this, I assume this is the picture of the long line at the Johnston landfill of what I'm counting to be at least 13 trucks.
Yeah, and I apologize for not having it for everybody, but yeah, I just wanted to give the council an understanding of what the trucks go through when they're driving up to Johnston. You know, they go over the scale at the bottom of the mountain, but then they drive up to the top of the mountain, and typically they're queued up in a line the whole way up. And then when they get to the top, that's what they're driving through. You know, they're essentially driving over all the day's refuse that everybody else has dumped. And then, you know, they're discharging, and then they get to drive out of there. And like you said, the queue can be considerable, but even if it's not, they still have to deal with, you know, the mud and the trash, and that takes a significant significant toll on the vehicles, as you can imagine.
Mhm.
You know, it shows, some of those show the mud caked up on you know, the machinery and the mechanics of it. You know, the hydraulics, we always have issues with hydraulics. They're exposed, and now they're going through this kind of thing every time they go up to Johnston. And again, it wouldn't eliminate those trips, but it would allow us to minimize them. You know, and so some of the older vehicles perhaps that have trouble with that trip to Johnston, they might be the ones that we decide to send to Jefferson Boulevard. But that's kind of what we're looking at.
Okay, and I'm also, I'm seeing you got the person who took the pictures took some good pictures of the mud, and this one truck literally up to its fenders in the mud.
Yeah, that's a good one.
That's pretty disgusting. And with the storm coming this Friday, obviously some of the concerns that were brought up for this transfer station was the consistency that the waste will be transferred. So do you think Waste Management will transfer that one? Like if we use Jefferson Boulevard to put it, Waste Management will do a daily run, so that'll be cleaned up, or will it sit?
No, they will run it up daily. Yeah, it doesn't behoove them to let them stockpile it, right? Their facility isn't that big, and that's why they only agreed to take 50 to 60 tons, because they can't hold that much at the facility, right? So they're going to take our trash and bring it up. And obviously, we'll need to reconcile those numbers, right? So we'll go to Waste Management, Jefferson Boulevard, drive over scale, and then dump, and then we'll get those numbers so that we know when we pay our tipping fees that those numbers match, right? So that our trash isn't going to a back of a truck and getting mixed with other people's trash, and then we're paying for other people's tipping fees. We'll be able to reconcile those numbers by seeing when we go over the scale here, and it says 10 tons, 10 tons, 10 tons, and then we go up to Johnston and we dump, it's 30 tons, right? So we'll be able to reconcile those numbers, so we won't have to worry about any kind of, you know, games like that.
Okay, all right. Thank you. I do appreciate and we're all aware of the beating that our trucks are taking as we wait for the new trucks to come. We've gotten a couple already delivered, and I certainly don't want to see them take a beating and be taken out of service. But yeah, this is something else. I mean, if you have a 4x4, it's a wonderland. But for our sanitation, our $100,000 sanitation trucks, no, I'd rather not. Members of the committee, Councilman Gebhardt.
Didn't we have a makeshift transfer station that we had put together?
We had asked DEM for permission to use the city yard as a transfer station for recycling. And that's a big difference, right? Because when our trucks go up to Johnston, the municipal recycling facility, MRF, that's at the bottom of the mountain, and it's all asphalt. So the trucks go up, pull into essentially a big parking lot, dump inside a building, and then they're back on the road coming back to Warwick. So the wear and tear on the vehicles isn't as significant. But that, you know, recycles are also cleaner, which is why they were allowing us to do recycles. I don't think, you know, putting trash on the ground at City Yard would be a lot of red flags.
Have we asked?
We haven't asked, but when I was Public Works Director in Pawtucket, they had their municipal transfer station, And there are all kinds of hoops you have to jump through when you start talking about trash. It's got to be an enclosed building because of rodents. You got to make sure you're cleaning up everything at the end of the night. There are a lot of hoops to jump through if you start doing trash.
Okay, got it. I had more. Whose idea was this?
It kind of came from a number of sources. You know, certainly the mechanics in the garage, the highway department, you know, myself reaching out to Waste Management. But everybody who knew that facility was there at one point had thought, what about that one, right? And so then we started reaching out, and at first Waste Management wasn't amenable to it because they didn't have the capacity. And I think that part of, to be honest, I think that part of them working with us is they may want to do more business with the city. You know, maybe they want to work in if you ever talk about privatization, but you know, that's certainly not on the table. And this helps us avoid any of those discussions.
Okay. You talked about, so we'll weigh when we drop off and then weigh later. Isn't there some component of when a load gets to the dump of it could be rejected, or there are certain ratios of
that's again recycling.
Oh, okay.
Right. If your recycling isn't clean, and that was actually with our transfer station at City Yard, we had a lot more rejected loads because one of the reasons they can reject it is too much moisture, right? And so now we're stockpiling it outside if it rained. But yeah, that's true of recycling. But trash, they just take whatever you bring them.
Okay. I think that's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you. Sergeant Lee Arms, I gave him the photos, so if there's any members of the public that would like to kind of put a picture to what we're discussing. Council President McAllister.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Director, I think Councilman Gephardt asked a lot of good questions. This is something new that we're looking at. This has been a big problem. We've all gotten the calls. We've all seen our trash being delayed, being picked up. We're doing our best. I know you're looking at some administrative work to try to do some fixes here. We've ordered some new trucks coming on. Again, saving time, driving to Jefferson Boulevard, sending it there, and then getting right back on the roads will help out. We also got to remember the input that's putting on the city workers that are working on this. Yes, I'm sure they love the overtime, but they love their families more and free time. And we are pushing them hard. You see that they're picking up Saturdays, they're picking up Sundays. They picked my trash up in Greenwood, 8 o'clock at night recently. This is, I think, a good proposal. It's a way to, again, trying to the normal way. Go to Johnston, you sit in the line, you dump it, and you come back, and let's get some new trucks and let's do things. This is just another avenue. Also want to put up that this, where you're taking on Jefferson Boulevard, it's already there. So this is not something we're creating. It's not going to be a new thing that's all of a sudden be getting trash. I just want, if you could just mention that.
Yeah, well. No, that's an excellent point, because whenever you start talking transfer station, and rightfully so, a neighborhood doesn't want that, right? You potential to introduce odors, potential to introduce, vermin, rats, whatever. To your point, this is an existing facility, and they're managing the facility per all the proper DEM requirements for this type of facility. So we won't have to worry about any of those types of things. But that's an excellent point.
Thank you. And again, this is not going to be the new move where we just send all the trucks there and dump into this. We know, early in the day, if you're not going to hit your mark that day, early in the day what truck is down. Are you going to be able to get it back on the road and stuff like that, so you can make a real-time decision? This is just giving you, the DPW director, the sanitation department, just an extra option, just another option. It is not a new policy that we are doing. We're no longer going to Johnston.
That's correct. That's correct. And Waste Management has also indicated that there may be days when they call us up the night before and they say, hey, you know what? We can't take any of your trash tomorrow because our facility's not available. And then we have to adjust accordingly. So it's not, the intention was never to send all of our trash there, like you said. Again, it's just one more option for us to minimize overtime, minimize wear and tear on the vehicles, mechanics. To your point earlier, we had someone that had 30 hours of overtime. That's a nice paycheck, but you're not seeing your family. And to do that, maybe once, 1 week, every once in a while, but when that's your regular kind of week, that's not fun. And the guys really getting burnt out with those types of days. And this will help mitigate that type of thing.
Absolutely. And as you mentioned, it's not just the drivers of the trucks, it's the mechanics.
Right.
Trying to get the mechanics, and they're not just fixing these trucks, they're fixing all of the trucks, and it's an important job. So I like this. I think it is a creative idea. I don't want to see it, like you said, I don't think they could take our business 100% anyways, but having more options to be able to do that, again, the members of the public have been really patient and great. They understand that we're working on this. And this is a great idea because it's not just let's buy new, let's kind of maintain what we have now, less wear and tear, driving to Jefferson Boulevard and get them back on the roads in an option, having another option there. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. President. Councilman Lattiser.
Thank you, Chairman. Eric, so with the Jefferson Boulevard transfer station, how long has that facility been there?
You know what? I don't know. I don't have the information on the history of it.
It's been there a very long time.
Okay.
Right?
Like I said, I don't know the history. I
Christie,
imagine so.
do you know? Well, I seem to recall it's been there. So I guess the point is, this isn't a new facility that just started up. What is the average hourly rate of one of the drivers on the sanitation trucks?
About 25.
25 per hour plus the benefits. So I would say it's fairly safe to say that the cost of a driver is about $35 an hour. Fair to say?
Were you calculating in the benefits?
Yeah, I'm putting in, somewhere around 40% plus for benefits.
Sure.
So from a business perspective, I get where you're coming from. I mean, this is something that I deal with in my world. And just to share with my colleagues and members of the public as well. So currently, for a 30-yard dumpster, up to 4 tons, we pay $650 for that dumpster. Anything over 4 tons, we pay $125 a ton. Eric, you stated to us that by using the transfer station, they're going to be charging us $31 a ton. We go there with one of our vehicles, we back up to a 30-yard dumpster?
No.
What is it?
What is that? Yeah, you mean up at Johnston?
No, the one at Jefferson Boulevard.
Yeah.
Okay. So
yeah,
our
sure.
trucks are going to go there, they're going to back in, they're going to dump it, they're going to come back to wherever they were.
Right.
So when I analyze a cost of doing business, I like to get right down to the nickels and dimes because it's about the real cost. It's not just the fact that we have an employee that's costing us $35 an hour with benefits. That's not the real cost. So instead of going to the transfer station at Jefferson Boulevard, we could send the truck up to the landfill, stand in line forever and a day. I've been through it. Drive through, get stuck on traffic on 295, coming back, etc. Easily a 2-hour run. That's assuming things go well. In addition to that, as the pictures showed, and I've experienced, we drive out of that landfill more times than we'd like, with nails in the tires, glass in the tires. We're going to start replacing tires. And you guys know how I feel about the tire budget. We go through that enough. But that's reality, and those are costs. there's a big issue here, a business perspective. In these times when we're on pressure and we don't have enough trucks on the road to be able to collect the trash, and we're paying overtime, et cetera. Take a 30-yard dumpster that holds 5 tons. It's going to cost us $155 to let the transfer station bring it to the big dump in the sky. $155. In addition to not having to spend that 2 hours on the road, we have our drivers right back out on the street picking up trash. So this is about productivity of the employees. And by the way, this is all, and as I understand it, this is all a temporary situation, tentatively 30 days, for spending authority up to $150,000. Until our new trucks are in service and until our old trucks have the opportunity to get fixed correctly. Because the problem that I understand DPW is having is because the new trucks are not up and on the street as yet, as I understand it, correct? We got 2 new trucks that are not on the road yet?
They are now.
They are now. Okay,
Yeah.
as of a few days ago, I was told they went out.
Correct.
Okay. So when we have these situations of paying overtime and we have our vehicles, because they're not fixed correctly, constantly breaking down, what we're doing is send a vehicle into the shop, fix this, put a Band-Aid on it, a hose clamp, send it back out onto the street, and then and sometimes the same day, they're broke down again. So my understanding is this 30-day window is going to afford DPW the opportunity to bring those vehicles that need the repairing, put them in the shop, and get them repaired completely, as opposed to, well, let's fix this, and oh, we see that, but let's, we got to get it back out on the street. Is that accurate statement?
Yeah, that's very accurate. And like Christy had alluded to, when the guys are out there for 14 hours, they're driving the trucks, that means that when they come in at the end of the night at 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock at night, they're not taking the time to clean them out because they've been on the road for 14 hours. This will provide us that opportunity as well to stay on board with the preventive maintenance that we haven't had a chance to do just because the vehicles aren't out of operation long enough to perform those things. So yeah, that's exactly one of the things we're looking to do.
So for all those reasons, on a temporary basis, this is something that it makes sense to me. And it's something that I would support. And the goal is to get our new vehicles online, to get our other vehicles online, functioning on a day-to-day basis, get an impact or reduction on the overtime, which you guys know I go crazy about all the time. And during that period, be able to keep up with what the residents have come to expect from us. So for those reasons, I'm going to be supporting this. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councilman. I think we have time before we pause the committee. Councilman Foley.
Just one question, Eric. On the $31 a ton, are we locked into that? And I'm not putting you on the spot, but just that we've been getting people coming back because of rising gas prices, supplies, and all that.
Yeah,
Are we locked in for the 30 days?
Yeah.
Question. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other comments, understanding that I'm going to be pausing the committee in about 3 minutes? Are there any other comments or questions from members of the
I just want to follow up on that.
council? I'm sorry, go ahead, Councilman Gebhardt. Do you want to speak to the director?
Yeah.
Director Earls.
I just missed the answer on that. So what was the lock-in period? Because I can see in your email correspondence, you asked her in September, it was 28, and then it was 31, so.
Right, yeah. And so our agreement with them is, and this 150,000, Christie keeps correcting me, is actually for 90 days.
Okay.
So that's what
Locked
we're
in
looking
for
at,
90
yeah.
days. Great, thank you.
Great clarification. Thank you. Thank you for Christie for setting them straight.
Thank you, Christie.
Councilman Ricks, 2 minutes.
Very
Till the
brief-
pause.
Very briefly, I'll just state that Councilman Lattiser and my colleagues on the council have already asked and received answers on the questions that I had. I would just say briefly that the waste transfer station appears to have been there for at least a couple of years. I've driven by there as it is in Ward 2. I have received 0 constituent complaints over this period of time from constituents about that waste transfer station. And that's not really a surprise because there are no residential houses in that area. Specifically, it's between the Patuxent River and Route 95. You don't have residential houses around there. It's not disturbing anyone. So I think that this is a great plan for all of the reasons discussed. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Speaking to the solicitor, we have time. So we're discussing bid 2022-354. If any citizens from the in the council chambers would like to speak on this bid, utilize waste management transfer station. Are there any citizens that would like to speak on this bid? Please identify yourself at the microphone.
My name's Rick Casella. I live in Ward 1. A direct question for the director. How many tons of garbage does each trash truck hold? 6 tons?
6 or 8, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, it can
So
vary.
it's going to cost us $86 per truck to dump it down the other end at $31 a.
Right, yeah.
Okay. Oh, and how much trash can you pick up in one day in one sector? I'm assuming they're in districts, in wards. How do you break down the areas? Just curious how much.
There is each, so the city's broken up into 5.
Okay.
5 trash days, and each of those days has 7 trash routes. So there are 35 trash routes in the city.
If we picked up one trash route, how much trash average-wise would you think? 25 tons?
Well, it'd be, yeah, I mean, so we pick up about 100 tons a day, 7 routes. So what's 100 divided by 7? Like 13, 14 tons?
Okay. So if we were sending the trucks, we'd have a couple of hours in labor and some maintenance and some cleaning times and
all of that,
obviously
yep.
the overtime. But this isn't a wash though. We still need the 50,000 a month because the savings is not going to equal the money we need to dump the trash at. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I know what you're saying. And
Okay.
so if we were to eliminate all the overtime and sanitation by doing this, it would pretty much be a wash.
Okay.
But we're not going to be able to eliminate all the overtime, I'm sure.
Oh, I understand.
But that's kind of the ballpark that we're in. But that's an excellent question.
So I guess my last question would be then, so what you're basically saying is that in the interim, while you're waiting to implement this, your goal would be to see how you can schedule trash to the waste facility in Warwick so as to get that wash as close as you can to whatever level they'll allow. If they tell you, well, we don't have room, they don't have room. I understand that. But if you knew I have to get to that transfer station 18 times this week in order for this to be a wash, then you could keep better track of, you know what I'm saying? I'm just concerned about the additional amount of money and whether or not we can, glean some savings enough that it will be something you can tell the taxpayers, hey, this is a great way to,
Yeah,
You know what I'm
absolutely. I think that right now, like I said, if we were to completely eliminate overtime, it would pretty much be a wash.
Okay.
We're probably not going to be able to do that.
Of course.
Right?
Yep.
But in a week or 2 weeks, if we're having this discussion, then we will know exactly where we are as far as plus minus, because now we can figure out, all right,
Sure.
we still got to pay some overtime. And this calculation is also based on that we are bringing all 60 a day, 60 tons a day there. If we're bringing less than 60 tons, well then we're in the black on that calculation, right?
Okay.
So that's kind of what we were basing it on, and that it's almost
So
a
should
wash.
this turn out to be something that is awash and works for us without, obviously undermining the bargaining units and the workers and,
Yeah.
erasing
Yeah.
jobs. It's something we might look at over a long term.
It's
it could
possible.
be.
It's possible. If we call this a trial and things go really
It
well.
seems
then-
like the smart thing to do, if you ask me. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other comments from the public? Okay, hearing none, we're going to pause the Finance Committee at 6:58, Mr. President, and we will resume upon the opening of the council.
Thank you very much. And just for the members of the public and people watching at home, we've just paused the Finance Committee meeting. We are going to call the full council meeting at 7 o'clock. We are going to do a roll call. Then we are going to have a special guest that's going to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. We will then play the national anthem. Then we will come back and do a special acknowledgement of the special guest. Then we're going to do general communications, executive communications, and then we will have public comment. Then we will go back into the Finance Committee. So that is the roadmap for this evening. So we will be back a couple minutes after 7 o'clock. We just need to let the clerk and the legal team get in place. So we'll see you in 2 minutes. And also, one more note, there is a sign up for public comments on the podium. So if you're interested in speaking at the public comment section, please sign up on the podium now. Good evening, everyone. Good evening, everyone. At this time, I'm going to call the City Council meeting for February 23rd to order. The clerk will call the roll.
Mr. McAllister?
Here.
Mr. Foley?
Here.
Mr. Gephardt?
Here.
Mr. Howe? Here. Mr. Lattiser?
Here.
Mr. McElroy?
Here.
Mr. Ricks?
Here.
Mr. Snappy? Ms. Travis?
Here.
9 present.
Thank you. I just want to give a quick roadmap of where we're going this evening. So next up, we're going to have the salute to the flag. Then we will have the national anthem play. Then we are going to do a special acknowledgement after the national anthem. Then we will have general communications. Then we will have executive communications from someone from the Comprehensive Community Action Program. Then we will do public comment. So there is a sign-up sheet on the podium if you would like to do public comment. After public comment, we will pause the full council meeting and we're going to go back into committees as we did not finish the committees at this time. So right now, I would like to call on Jamie Clampett-Hayes to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which we stand, one nation, under God, indivisible, for liberty and justice for all.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the balls bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Thank you very much. At this time, I would like to make special recognition of Jamie. She goes by Jamie the Hurricane this evening that led us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Jamie is a Warwick resident, lives in Greenwood. She has 2 children and a husband, and is also a 4-time world boxing champion. Jamie the Hurricane, she was introduced into the International Women's Boxing Hall of Fame in 2020. So a Hall of Famer right here in Warwick, Rhode Island. Jamie is also a small business owner here in Warwick, and she owns the boxing and fitness gym On the Ropes. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Jamie also sold out the Crown Plaza Saturday night, where people came out to see her second fight since retirement after 2 children, already in the Hall of Fame, came back and won in the main event on Saturday night. Jamie is a part of CES Boxing, which is a Rhode Island business that does promotions, boxing, mixed martial arts across the country, and they're based here in Rhode Island, and they chose Warwick. They chose the Crown Plaza. And what an event it was. I was telling Jamie I'd never been to a boxing match before. It was exciting. The crowd was lit. Everybody was excited. And to see a hometown hero like that win, it was excellent. So I just wanted to take a special moment just to recognize, again, a mother, a wife, a 4-time world champion, a Hall of Famer, a small business owner, and a Warwick resident, Jamie the Hurricane.
Thank you.
Jamie, I don't know if you'd like to say a few words,
Yeah.
but
Thank you so much. When my promoter, Jimmy Birchfield, gave us, talked about having my fight in Warwick, I was just so excited. I live in Greenwood. Having it at the Crown Plaza was huge for me. And obviously my gym, my 2 out of 3 of my business partners are here, Kathy Lyons and Tracy Lombard. We were just so excited to just keep everything in Warwick. We had so much support with local businesses like Vonda, Dino, he owns some restaurants in Warwick. And we had Aruga's, Apponaug Brewery. We had so much local support. And I think it was just a huge success. And we just want to keep all of that in Warwick and just continue to move forward with boxing.
thank you so much. And we really appreciate you highlighting that. I know Venda is a Warwick business here in Apponaug, and Camille Vela-Wilkinson, a state rep, is here. So I wanted to thank her for coming out. She's been a big supporter of the small business community here in Warwick. Mr. Birchfield, again, an international promoter, has his business here in Rhode Island and is bringing business here into Warwick. So this was just an outstanding event. I think we live on the same road, and
Yep.
and now I know, and I'm just really impressed. I just wanted to highlight, this is one of the things that this city council wants to do, is we want to take the opportunity at the beginning of council meetings to really highlight the all-stars, the great things that is happening in our community. And you were one of the best. So I just want to thank you so much, and welcome to the council meeting.
Thank you so much.
We are now going to move on to general communications. That was my general communications. I was just so proud of the event that was put on at the Crown Plaza. Again, great stuff, and thank you to everybody that was involved. Any members of the council? Councilman Ricks.
A brief announcement. As mentioned a few weeks ago at a previous council meeting, we are going to be resuming the Tax Relief Commission meetings. This is for the purpose of, in advance of this year's budget, seeing if we can come up with some solutions to help those who can least afford to be hit by a tax increase. Specifically, we are focusing on looking at what can we do with our current exemptions? How can we make any changes needed to make sure that people aren't falling through the cracks? So that meeting is going to, our first of this year, going to come back here in the council chambers starting at 5:30 this coming Monday, which is Monday, February 28th. We do have the council chambers reserved for some future meetings as well as the library, but future scheduling is going to be a decision made by the commission as a whole at that time. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Howe.
Thank you, Mr. President. And I'd just like to also second what you said with the special guests here. Being the young Irish kid who grew up in prominently Italian Silver Lake, everyone knows who Jimmy Birchfield is. So I can tell you, I was especially honored a couple of years back when Representative Ella Wilkinson introduced me to him. It was a big honor. And the fact that you, the mayor, Representative Ella Wilkinson, and Mr. Birchfield arranged to have a Warwick resident come out of retirement and keep that belt, retain that belt, and represent Warwick, and something I didn't know, and I'm so happy I learned over the last couple of weeks. It means a lot. And so I just wanted to thank everyone for that team effort and bringing that into Warwick. And thank you for coming tonight, everyone. It's a great honor. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Any other council members? So obviously you guys are more than welcome to stay for the rest of the council meeting, but we wanted to thank you very much. We have a lot of interesting topics to come up, but we understand if you like. So thank you very much. Thanks. Next up on the agenda this evening is executive communications. And I'm going to ask Councilwoman Travis to introduce our speaker this evening, who is going to give a brief overview of some programs that are available to Warwick residents. Councilwoman Travis.
Yes, Mr. President, it is an honor to introduce today Michael Freitas from the Comprehensive Community Action Program to give a nice brief overview of the programs available to Warwick residents. So, Michael.
You got a tough act to follow there, Mike. Sorry about that.
All right. They keep saying brief because they know I can talk, so I will be brief. First off, I just want to say thank you for allowing me to come and share some of the stuff that we have going on in the community. Like they said, my name is Michael Freitas. I work at Comprehensive Community Action Program. Now, I'm not here to talk about that specific agency. I'm here to talk about a state-funded program that I just happen to work, and I am the initiative director for this new program. It's called Health Equity Zone. It's been around in the state for a while now, and it's a Rhode Island Department of Health funded program. And what it does is it's a resident-run program. So the residents essentially are my boss. And what they say goes, right? We go out there, we survey the community, we do different data, entry stuff. We do different data gathering, speak outs and stuff like that. And what we do is we take all that data and what the residents say that is most important to them, we go back to the Department of Health as a team and get funding. And then that funding comes down for particular programming, and we, as a board, we give out that money to the particular agency that might be best suitable to tackle that particular problem. So, for example, our board consists of, we call it a leadership team, and our lit team is consisted of 16 residents scattered all over each ward, and 12 agencies. Thrive Behavioral Health, Comprehensive Community Action Program, Elizabeth Buffum Chase Center, West Bay Community Action, the list goes on, all right? And all of these agencies are in Warwick. And some of these agencies, a lot of people don't really know about, like, for example, CCAP, we have 2 medical facilities in Warwick, one on Post Road, right, connected with Thrive Behavioral Health, and another one on Buttonwoods Avenue. Some people don't know that, West Bay moved out to Jefferson Boulevard. Some people don't know about Elizabeth Buffum Chase if they're going through domestic violence. So what we do is we try to educate the community and we try to help the community as much as possible. But again, what happens is our board is 60% residents. So at the end of the day, the residents have the voice in what we do for our programming. Right now, we've been an initiative giving out, I got 8,500 testing kits that I've been giving out to the community. We did a thing, I put an ad in the paper, we did a give out at the Knights of Columbus. And what happened is Rhode Island Department of Health gave us some cold spot areas in the city of people that were having trouble accessing at-home tests for COVID. So what we did was we tried to do these things inside these cold zone areas. And what that is Sandy Lane, Church Avenue, Connecticut, Oakland Beach. So I did it at the Knights of Columbus so that way we could kind of be in the middle for these folks to come down and get these testing kits. We're hopefully doing another one right in Connecticut. And then I've been giving them to local churches, local businesses, different things like that. We have a survey going out to the community in about 2 to 3 weeks. That's going to go to all 6th grade and up students, so 6th grade through 12th. We'll get a youth survey, and then their parent or guardian will get a parent or guardian survey to do. And then what we're doing is we're going to break each ward up. So a lot of you have already met with me and we've talked about different things and we've been working together. We're going to do 3 wards at a time and do speak outs. So 7, 8, 9 will have a speak out at Tollgate High School. 1, 2, 3 will be at Pilgrim. 3, 4, 5 will be at Warwick Vets. And we have the school department on board to go out there and let the community come out and tell us what their biggest issues are. If it's, health issues, if it's, a diabetes issue, if it's housing, if it's, transportation, if it's, access to mental health care, substance abuse care, whatever it may be. And we'll go and get the funding from the Department of Health and bring it back and then disperse it out to the community to give those people what they want. I've worked already with Councilman Sinapi in the area over by Nilo Hotel. We've already implemented programming for the folks that are there, that the homeless folks that are there temporarily. We're providing medical and dental and transportation to those appointments, as well as behavioral health. And West Bay is providing food and clothing for folks when they get housed out of that particular area. And then we've been trying to educate the community on what's going on there, because I know a lot of folks were very upset about that particular situation. And what we do is we want to help as many people as we possibly can, but we also have to remember we can't forget about the community members as well. So those are just some of the things that we're doing. We're getting out there. We're out there in the public. I'm starting to build a team. We're hiring for folks to come and work and who want to help and who want to be out there, working with people on a regular basis to try and help with their needs. And over the next, couple months, we'll be doing a lot of research and data. And once we get, the data back and we get what the needs are, we will put the programming together. So I appreciate the time. And like I said, again, it's called Warwick Health Equity Zone. We shorten it up and we call it Warwick HES. And we will be here. And if you have any questions, feel free to ask me afterwards, or you can go on the Department of Health website and look at some of the other cities and towns that have done this and some of the things that they have going on that we will shortly be bringing to Warwick. So thank you.
Thank you very much. And just give you the best contact information if residents want to follow up with you or members of the council.
Yep.
The best contact information.
So best contact information, you can call me at 401-439-3805. And my email is mfreitas, so it's MFRATUS at comcap.org.
Thank you very much for sharing that very important information.
Thank you.
And this was under executive communication, so any questions can be asked after the council meeting.
Do you have a Facebook page too? I see it being mouthed to you.
Oh, yes, we do. You can like us on Facebook, Warwick Health Equity Zone, and Instagram as well.
Thank you.
Yep.
Next up, and then I just want to make one last call. We're going to do the acceptance of the minutes right now. Then we're going to do public comment. If anyone would like to speak for public comment, last call to sign up on the podium right here, or see our Sergeant of Arms. Okay, we're now on A on the agenda, the acceptance of the minutes from the council meeting held on February 7th. Do I have a motion?
Favorable action.
Second by Councilman Foley. All those in favor? Say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay. Thank you very much. All right, we are now on public comment. Rule 41. After the general communications and prior to the consent calendar at each city council public hearing meeting, there shall be a 15-minute period during which citizens may comment about Warwick city government issues, subject to the following stipulations. The total period of time for public comment shall be 15 minutes. Comments need to be brief in order to allow as many citizens as possible to participate. The topics for comment shall be issues directly affecting city government. City council members will not respond to questions during the public comment period. The public comment session will terminate at the expiration of 15 minutes. Waiver of this provision requires unanimous consent. At this time, we have two individuals who have signed up to speak. The first person this evening is Rob Cody.
Good evening, council members. So 6 months and 1 week ago today, on August 17th of 2021, the hidden for 3 years YKSM report and the Harrington report and the Rhode Island Supreme Court precedents rulings were unearthed by the Rhode Island Ethics Commission due to a complaint that I made on a former council member. These reports detailed very explicitly about the fact that the Warwick Fire Department engaged in illegal activity and conspired to abscond monies from the taxpayers of the city of Warwick. Those monies, combined with the cost to expose it, was $611,000. 1 week after that August 17th issue made the newspapers, this mayor of Warwick came public and said he would seek restitution. He spoke to me in that parking lot face to face and told me he would definitely seek restitution. I was also told by people to give the new mayor some time because he's a good guy and he's going to seek restitution. And if he didn't, that there'd be a resolution put forth before the city council to open this discussion up to the general public because the taxpayer needed restitution from the theft of taxpayers' dollars. Nothing's happened. It's been 6 months. So I'm not sure how much time we're supposed to give the mayor to act. And the city council has done nothing. So it appears from the outside looking in that the lack of action on both the mayor and on the city council seems to support the activity that it's okay in Warwick to steal from the taxpayers because we don't do anything about it. And God forbid there's a chance that we have to go to court. We certainly don't want to spend any monies. However, the Supreme Court precedent shows clearly that the city of Warwick is on solid legal grounds to seek restitution, and we would not incur any legal costs. Because all the mayor needs to do, and he and I had this conversation, and he's the CEO now, is to take the action and garnish the wages of those that stole the monies from the taxpayer. I'm sure he understands the concept of garnishing wages to recoup monies from entities that did not deserve those monies or did not pay those monies back. My prediction is nothing's going to get done from the executive branch or the legislative branch, and you'll send the message it's okay to steal from the taxpayers. At the last council meeting, Mr. Schaefer had spoken about that there's problems in the language of the fire contract that was ratified January 6, 2020. In particular, he spoke about the fact that there's ordinances that should have been instituted about the OPEB trust fund. And if you recall, 5 members of this council that voted for that and pushed that contract stating it would save $600,000. Both myself and Mr. Cushman testified not only would it not save $600,000, we'd probably spend an extra $4 million. But certain members of this council pushed that it would save $600,000. Well, who was right? The taxpayer was right. However, during the debate with Mr. Cushman on the OPEB trust with Mr. Harrington sat there and stated that the language was defective in that contract and it needed to be resolved by ordinance. It's been 2 years. It has not been resolved by ordinance. Mr. Schaefer pointed to it at the last Zoom meeting. And 2 years, and the council hasn't done anything about it. So that issue, combined with the issue of the fire department conspiring to steal, you've put us at risk. The lack of the action from the city council to do what they're hired to do, you have put the taxpayer at risk again for litigation. You know, $611,000 buys a couple of trash trucks, buys a couple of rescues, and I just can't for the life of me understand why no one in this body has had the fortitude to come through and put through a resolution to resolve this in public so this could never happen again. And everyone sits there like it's not an issue. The finance chairman has done nothing, the council president has done nothing, and we've had this conversation numerous times. I don't understand that. You're justifying poor behavior. In fact, you're justifying criminal behavior. And I don't understand why you've done nothing other than the fact that you're afraid of political fallout. What else can it be? I'd like somebody to speak to me and tell me, why is it taking so long? Council President hid a document for 3 years. Document clearly states we're within our rights for restitution. This council does nothing. Mayor does nothing. 6 months. Send the message up. Put it on the billboard. It's okay in Warwick to steal from the taxpayers because the executive branch of government and the legislative branch of government will do nothing to stop that behavior. The only action that I've seen is for certain council members to vilify the people that figure out what you guys are doing wrong. They take steps to name call in the newspapers and on social media. Yet, they were unable to figure out the mathematics that was so easy to figure out.
You have 1 minute, Mr.
We were
Cody.
being
Mr.
robbed.
Cody, 1 minute.
I heard you.
Okay.
We were being robbed, and now we have a defective contract that's put us at risk again for litigation, and 5 members of this council that voted for it, although we told them what would happen, they ignored us. We were right, and yet you sit there and do nothing about it and allow the taxpayers to get burned. Seriously, you guys make that statement all the time. I hear this honorable body. Well, I propose that that term never be used again under this roof because it does not apply. Thank you.
Next up is Cindy Wilson.
Good evening, everyone. There's two points I want to make. First of all, for the people on the council that went on Next Door Neighbor or their Facebook page and put down Mr. Cody for exposing the truth, shame on you. Shame on you. Because, the truth about the mayor, because once you run for office, your life is public. He omitted those facts on the Ethics Commission form. He omitted them. He says now he's not sure if he did, he
We
didn't
need to
see.
keep this to city issues.
Yeah, this is a
That's
city
sta- No,
issue.
it's not a state issue. Please keep
Okay,
your comments
this is
to
a city issue, because for those of you that did, and you know who you are, and put down Mr. Cody for telling the truth, shame on you. Because you know what that means to me? You're just looking for political favor. That's all that means to me. Secondly, finally, the mayor called me about my Airbnb issue. I'm sure you're all familiar. I've been fighting the battle for 6 years. If I had to guess, the reason he called me was because a reporter reached out to him about something different and he thought it was me. But I did get to meet with him, and his proposal was lame at best, and nothing, just terrible. And so I want to be able to meet with all of you personally to tell you my experience and why what Mr. Picozzi is saying we should do with Airbnbs is totally wrong, and why it won't work. And I think I have the right, because I was forced to pay close to $3,000 6 years ago to run my Airbnb, the only one registered in the city. So I'm going to reach out to each one of you via text to set up a meeting, because I know that Mr. Lattiser is going to put this on the docket, and I want the opportunity to explain to you where I sit and the reasons why I feel the way I do. And nobody would be better to do that than me, since I'm the only legal one for 6 years. Thank you.
Thank you. At this time, we are going to pause the council meeting and we are going to go back into committees. Do we want to take a 5-minute break before we start the committees? Restart the committees? All right, thank you. We'll be back in 5 minutes.
the bid package they would like to pull for discussion, I would request that we do that now. I will start with the committee. Thank you. Is there any items from that the committee would like to pull from the bid package? Or are there any items? Take your time. Are there any items from the bid package members of the council would like to take? Councilwoman Travis.
Yes, 2023-005. I have a question, and I didn't get a chance to call her, so.
I apologize. Which one was that, please? I'm sorry.
2023-005, National Night Out Fireworks Display.
2023-005. Got it. Are there any others, Councilwoman? No. Thank you, ma'am. Councilman Lattisaur.
Thank you, Chairman. Item number 10, 2022-336. Item number 11, 2022-337. And item 15, 2021-363.
Thank you, Councilman.
Thank you.
Councilman Gebhardt? Okay. Any other members of the council like to discuss anything from the bid package? Oh, not there. Members of the public, is there any item from the bid package you would like to have pulled and discussed? Members of the public? Oh. Good evening. Please state your name.
Ready? Hi, good evening, Pauline Janest again. Only because I'm not familiar with the exact way we're supposed to be doing this. I just wanted to make sure that we still had an opportunity to discuss the surveillance cameras before it goes up to vote. I do understand that a PCR number was made. I'm a little iffy as to how that works.
So the bid package, because that was a bid item, it was, as you know, it was given a PCR, which means it'll go to the full council. No recommendation, so we did not recommend approval and we did not recommend denial. Once it gets to the council, an open discussion will continue. And then, Mr. Solicitor, if I missed anything, just for clarification.
I would just note that the public hearing portion of the evening has concluded on that item.
I understand that. I'm just trying to.
The full body will, when we reconvene, it will be discussed amongst the 9 members of the council as to what, if anything, they wish to proceed on.
Okay, now going to the full council having this conversation, is that something that happens tonight? Is that something that
Yes.
happens? So that is something that will come up for a vote today?
Yes, it will.
It will definitely come.
It'll go on our general docket for this evening, yes.
So it definitely will have a vote going on, and you'll have a discussion prior to that we discussed already?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. Any other items from the bid package? Okay. So I'll go in numerical order. So that means I'll go to item number 10, bid 2022-336, repairs to, I'm sorry, give me one moment. Repairs to Rescue 2, that is found on page 71. Councilman Lattisaur.
Thank you, Chairman. Chief, a couple of clerical questions, I guess, to start out with. So on the invoice that we have here for $10,797, the description says the color is white, the year is 2021, but the make and model, it says a Ford F-550 pickup. Is that a typo or?
No, the Rescue 2 is mounted on a Ford 550 chassis.
So it's referred to as a pickup truck?
It's a Ford 550 Super Duty pickup truck chassis. It's an ambulance package.
Okay, but it's in fact the Rescue.
Correct.
Okay, because that certainly is a little bit confusing. And the VIN number is correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And the mileage of 28,286, that's correct?
That is correct.
The delivery date on this invoice it says January 1st, 2021, promised for January 10th. Well, let's go back to the 2021. I'm sure that must be a typographical error, right?
I'm going to assume that was a typo.
Okay, so that should be, for the record, that should be January 1st, 2022. The promise date of January 10th, 2022, it says is that requisition order? Is that what, that's a repair order?
I would assume repair order.
Opened on January 10th, and it was ready on the 31st. So we delivered the vehicle to them on the 1st, and they didn't do anything with it until the 10th? Is that it?
For anything that has to do with the actual repair itself and not just the spending authority, you're going to have to ask DPW. They're the one that actually performed the repair or had the repair performed.
Christie, can you speak to this? I'm trying to, codify that the information on this is correct.
So this is the 2021 Rescue. It is a Ford F-550 pickup. That's the cabin chassis. The body is separate. The delivery date, I believe, speaks to when it was delivered to the department, or I'm not sure. The RO was open, the repair order was open January 10th, 2022, and it was ready for pickup on January 31st, 2022.
Okay, so that information is correct. There's a note on here that says charge account, I guess. What does that mean?
So with this repair, from what I know about it, there was fluid was added to the diesel tank that shouldn't have gone in the diesel tank. There was just some confusion, I think. This was actually covered by the trust. And basically what happened is that the trust gave the money to the city, and the city has to pay the vendor. So it's not city funds. I believe they're using their 76, what's your budget code? 76359. So it's out of insurance proceeds.
Okay, so now you bring me to my next question as to a vehicle with 28,286 miles on it, why wasn't this under warranty? First question. And second question, on the bullet points at the bottom, if you could give us an explanation to what all that means.
It wasn't under warranty because it wasn't a warranty issue.
Well, that's what I'm asking. Why wasn't it a warranty issue?
Because there's two different pieces to the fuel system. You have the diesel that you put into the vehicle, and then you have the DEF fluid, which is diesel exhaust fluid, which mixes with the diesel as the vehicle runs. Diesel exhaust fluid was put into the diesel tank. It was driven, and then it contaminated the whole thing. So it was not a warranty issue. It had nothing to do with the performance from the manufacturer. It was an error on the part of whoever.
Somebody.
I don't know. But yes, so it wasn't a warranty issue. And as far as the bullet points, I'm not really sure which ones you're speaking about.
Well, I think you already spoke to it, because my questions were, why was it necessary to drain the fuel, check the high pressure fuel system, et cetera, on a brand new vehicle? It just seemed a bit odd. So with this invoice, on the back page, it shows a labor amount of $4,423.53. I don't see anywhere on this invoice where it shows us, or at least that I can understand on this invoice, where it shows to us the hourly rate and how many hours are charged to this repair. I don't know if I'm just not reading this right, or if you could help me out with that.
I don't necessarily see that spelled out either. But it was, the amount was $10,797, and that was fully covered by the trust.
No, I understand that, but the trust is an insurance policy that we pay for.
Yeah, I don't have.
So the coverage isn't free. We pay for that coverage. And when I'm looking at a bill for $4,423.53, I would want to know what is the labor rate they're charging us and how many hours are we being charged for. I have no idea. Well, in my world, I wouldn't pay that invoice until I get an accounting as to how much labor are you charging me for time and how much per hour are you charging me. I want to know that. Otherwise, I ain't paying the bill. So how do we know that? I don't see it on this invoice.
This is the first time I've seen this invoice, so I can't, I don't know.
Also, it says down here, it says add 20 gallons of fresh diesel fuel, bleed fuel filter system. I don't see anything on this invoice, and I'm not looking to pay more money, but it needs to be clarified. I don't see anything on this invoice where we were charged for 20 gallons of diesel fuel. So was that something that was given to us as a no charge?
I really couldn't speak to, I mean, I don't see it either, but I couldn't speak to that. I don't know if it's part and parcel of them flushing the system and then, making sure that it's running properly once they do that.
Sure.
It could be included in the fee for that as overall.
Has this invoice already been paid?
No.
So, Mr. Chairman, with all due respect, I think that we need to ascertain how many hours were applied to fix this vehicle and what the hourly rate was that we were charged. I mean, how do we know if we're being charged $100 an hour or $200 an hour? And how do we know if we're getting a fair rate on this? You don't know because it's not showing anything here. We have no idea how many hours were spent to fix this vehicle and what the hourly rate was. When we bid on these things, I understand that this is a 56.6, I get it. But when we award bids, we're always asking, what's the hourly rate? You want to know, because I'm not going to pay $200 for something that I should be paying $100 for. And then it might be minor, but nonetheless, it brings into question the invoice. The date on the invoice, delivery date, is wrong. Sure, it's a typo. I understand that. But my business, I wouldn't be paying this invoice until I get the answers to how many hours are we talking about and how much per hour. And I think we have the same responsibility to the taxpayers. We need to be able to answer that question.
Thank you, Councilman. Chief, do we already have this rescue back in service?
Yeah, we do.
And we're in good standing with Tasco?
As far as I know, yeah.
So a 2-week while we get answers on this, because I do feel I have to agree with what the councilman said. They do go out for bid on best rates, and I do realize it's paid for by the trusts. However, I think in the name of consistency, I would agree with what the councilman said. But in the meantime, I'll open it up to other members of the committee.
Mr. Chairman, may
Yes.
I
Oh, I'm sorry, you
just
weren't
follow
done?
up on that? No, I just want to follow up on what you said. So, and not that I disagree with it. So I have a series of vehicles in my company, and we send those vehicles in for repairs. I want to know what the hell I'm paying for.
No, I agree.
I've never gotten an invoice like this, and I'll refrain on that comment. I'll just say, I've never gotten an invoice for repairing vehicles like this that don't give me the hours that were put into it and how much the rate was per hour. And I believe we have a bid from Tasker that does talk about hourly rates. I want to see the hourly rates.
I do believe the hours are there, Councilman, but I agree with you that you don't see the rate.
Where's the hours?
If you turn it over on the back, it's not lined up perfectly, but they have the time and then it says service hours, S hours. So you'll see 5.51, 5.20. However, I do agree that that is something that's going to be.
It should be itemized.
I'm sorry?
It should be itemized. I mean, we shouldn't have to
I
sit
agree.
here, nor
I agree.
should purchasing or anyone else that's paying the bills and do the math.
I agree.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you.
I'd like to ask members of the committee, is there any questions, follow-up questions? Did you have one, Councilman? Members of the council, are there any questions or follow-up to what Councilman Lattiser said? And members of the public? Oh, I apologize. Chief, go ahead.
Just a couple statements. This is, because this was covered by the trust, I'm assuming the adjuster that went out there and made the estimate as to what the repair costs was already agreed upon between the trust and the city and the vendor, and that check has already been cut and given to the city. So this payment in full of $10,797.19, that check has already been deposited in the city account. So any changes to this invoice amount, we're going to have to refund money back to the trust in order to give them back money that they paid us that was agreed to by the adjuster who went out and made the initial estimate.
I understand. I hear what you're saying, Chief. So to approach this in a different way, I think to go with what the councilman is saying is, is Christie still here? Is that, oh, sorry, didn't see you. I think it would be smart for us to reach out to Tasca. I know we have a long relationship with them, and if there's a way that they could identify the rates and the hours, understand that this went through the trust, but still is a consistency thing, that the councilman is absolutely correct. We've talked about for years on this council about, the bidding and the numbers. So with that said, I would support getting that answer. I'm fine with passing this as is now, because as he said, the trust, it's already been approved. However, I would join you, Councilman, in saying it would be good to see Tasca kind of put more detail into their invoices.
So, Mr. Chairman, so we've heard two things here. I asked if this was paid for, and I was told no. Now the chief is saying it was paid for.
The money was deposited, so it wasn't paid for yet.
But was it deposited into Tasca's account?
No, the money was, a check was written from the trust to the city of Warwick.
To the city of Warwick.
The city of Warwick deposited that into this account that's
Clear.
mentioned on
Now I'm clear. At the end of the day, we pay insurance premiums. The trust doesn't work for us for free. And our premiums are based upon our expenses, money in, money out, bingo, gives us our rate. The fact that this was negotiated between the trust and Tasca doesn't change the business requirements. This invoice is made out to the City of Warwick Water Department. This is made out to us. This is our invoice. The trust simply, perhaps they negotiated a settlement, whatever they did. At the end of the day, we still have a responsibility to the people who pay the bills. And we have a responsibility to know how many hours were put in and how much do they charge us per hour.
Agreed.
So whether the money's deposited or not, we have to make a decision. Do you want to approve this in its current form, or do you want to hold it and wait for the proper documentation to come to us? I don't care where the money's been deposited already. That doesn't change the fact that this document isn't a responsible document for us to vote on in its current form.
So not to belittle and drag this out, but the way I'm seeing it is it was an agreement between, and I agree with you on all your points, but it was a discussion between the trust and Tasca where the trust agreed to pay this amount. And this is something that is, we can then go to Tasca on a separate notice, if you will, and say we'd like more detailed invoices. But this, as far as this is done, they did the work. The trust was the negotiator for us, who we pay to negotiate for us. The trust negotiated for us, and they approved this amount. Shame on the trust if they just gave them an open, bold number and agreed to it. But as far as for the city of Warwick, as you said, in future, I'm willing to go with you on future. We need to have more detailed invoices.
So, Chairman, if that's the case, why is it before us to vote on? Why is it?
We have to authorize the spending. We have to authorize from the check that was given to us.
Exactly. That's correct. It was given to us to vote on. In its current form, My opinion is we should not be voting on it because it doesn't give us the clarification. This was given to us to vote on. You want to vote on something that's not accurate, perhaps, or not
I'm going to
known?
vote on something that was already agreed upon between an insurance company and a company that repaired it. And dealing with the invoice, to me, is something separate that we can put forward as a request. That's my opinion, and I'll leave it to the rest of the council. So I'll leave, the question was asked, the answers were given. Is there a motion? Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, I didn't include, I apologize. I thought I did. Any public comment on this item? Any public comment? May I have a motion? Oh, no motion needed. I apologize. You're right.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like a separate PCR on this, please.
I have a request for a PCR. So we have a motion on former bid 2022-336, Repair Rescue 2. It is now PCR 2822 per request of Councilman Lattiser. May I have a motion?
I'll move to hold until our next meeting.
Second.
We have a motion. We have a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm just catching up on my notes. Give me one moment. You made the motion. He seconded. And our next meeting is March 7th. Thank you. Thank you. Next item.
Just before we move
Yes.
off, Chief or Christie, if we could just get that additional supporting documentation before the next meeting so we can actually vote in affirmative when we get there. Thank you.
The next item is bid number 11, 2022-337, Repair Rescue 12, per request of Councilman Lattiser.
Thank you, Chairman. Just bear with me 1 minute.
Councilman, while
I'm all set with this.
you're
one,
all set.
Chairman.
Oh, okay, thank you. Since I opened it up, are there any questions from members of the committee?
Oh, no, excuse me, Mr.
Oh.
Chairman. No, I found what I was looking for. Sorry. So,
Okay, hold on one sec, Councilman. I'm sorry. Are there any questions from members of the committee? We're on, he requested 2022-337, Repair to Rescue 12. That's item number 11. And that's on page 75.
Got it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilman, thank you.
yes, thank you, Chairman. So this is the way an invoice should look. If you look at the very first item, it has 8.1 hours of labor, and it gives you your extended labor price. And it's got a breakdown of everything, including shop supplies. This invoice is broken down the way it should be. We can look at this and we can take a responsible position, whether you agree or you disagree with the cost. At least you've got everything the way it should. So I just wanted to separate that out, to point that out. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. I agree. Any other questions from members of the
That's twice
council?
tonight. That's twice tonight.
That's
I'm counting.
twice. Any other questions from members of the council? Any questions on this item from members of the public? Thank you. Item number 13, bid 2023-005, National Night Out Fireworks Display, as requested by Councilwoman Travis. Councilwoman.
But to get them, I know we talked the other day, there was one thing I forgot to ask. Well, I mean, I know, on here it doesn't say where it's going to be held.
Oakland Beach.
It is going to be held in Oakland Beach? Okay. Now, it does say 8,000, I've done National Night Out for a million years now, I can't even keep track. But, this is the only one that doesn't have a rain date. In all the years we've done it, we never had a rain date.
Right.
And I think the last time I remember, we got report on was like 19 years ago. No, it's easy to remember that because my granddaughter was one. But what happens? Say it rains out before they even set out. We don't pay the 8,000, right?
No, we don't pay for it.
No. But what if they set up and then it rains on it before they fire it? I mean, because say they get wet or something.
I don't call it, the fire department calls it, and the company, the fire tech company.
Then we have to pay the 8,000?
No.
Oh, we still don't pay. As long as
We
we
don't
don't
pay
fire them off, we don't pay.
Right.
Okay, that was because I know all the other ones have rain dates. We've never had a rain date. And I said, I keep forgetting we don't happen once that I can remember. But I didn't know what happens if they don't shoot the fireworks off, we don't have to pay them.
That's correct.
All right, that's all I needed to know, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Members of the committee? Councilman Lattiser.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. So I just want to tell you how much I support you having the fireworks in Oakland Beach. I think it's a great location, and I'm very, very happy to hear that's what those fireworks are going to be held. Thanks, great decision. Thank you very much.
We also are outgrowing Oakland Beach. I just want you to know that, okay?
And just for the record, anyone can docket fireworks in Ward 5, just saying. Thank you. Any comments or questions, further questions from council concerning National Night fireworks? Any questions, comments from the audience? Any questions or comments from the audience? Thank you. Thank you. Item number 15, bid 2021-363, repairs to compressor equipment at Thayer Warburton. Councilman Lattiser requested.
Oh, yes, thank you, Chairman. So this position paper we have here doesn't give me a whole lot of information. Christie, for the $60,000 that apparently we've already spent on this compressor, have you received, or have we, the city, received invoices accounting for all that $60,000?
Yes.
Okay. And you've confirmed that all of the services that have been provided under that request of $60,000 have been completed?
Yes.
Okay. So what new repairs are necessary to do now that weren't noticed before?
So we have the back rank compressors are pretty well all set, knock wood. I hate even saying that. The front ring compressors, one of them is running, only one of them right now. The other ones needs a housing and needs some other additional work to it. Then they have to do some work with the glycol that's in the system and replace whatever refrigerant that it needs to get back up to where it should be. These compressors we've been having a lot of trouble with the oil. It's not skimming properly. There's too much in the system. Overall, we've put well over $200,000 into that one room for the two rinks. It's long overdue. It hadn't had attention really for a couple of years. So when Mayor Picozzi tasked us with bringing it up to where it should be, it's been a very expensive endeavor. However, I think this should be the end of it.
We've heard that one before.
I'm hoping.
I know.
It's not an easy system to fix. It's not something that just anyone can, walk in there and say, oh yeah, there's your problem. And, we've encountered some emergencies, but we're managing, so.
So Christie, you show down here the technicians' hourly rate, $120 an hour, truck charge, et cetera. It says materials billed with a 20% markup. So when they present you with an invoice, do they break that down and show you what the cost of that pot is?
So
in addition, plus a 20% markup, and here's what our cost is?
Well, I don't know if you can see this, but this is one page of one invoice the last one we got. It shows all the time. It shows the dates. These are all parts. What they do for me, they don't put it on their invoice. They send me backup documentation of where they bought the parts from, how much they were, and then that's how we verify that it's correct.
Okay, so you get documentation on all parts, regardless of how little or how much.
Right. So if they, bought a pump at Granger and then they bought something else at, I don't know, somewhere, a widget somewhere else, they send me the invoices, their invoices from those vendors.
Okay. And who does that reconciliation of that?
I do.
You do. Okay. Okay, that's all I got, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Christie.
Thank you, Councilman. Any other questions, concerns from members of the council or committee? Members of the public? Members of the public? That concludes discussion on the consent calendar. If I may have a motion on the full consent calendar.
Favorable action.
Second.
I have a motion for favorable. I have a second. All in favor? Aye. That concludes the Finance Committee for this evening. The time is now 8:12.
Next up is the Public Safety Committee, and then we will go back into the full council meeting. And then Public Properties is what I meant. Public Safety, Public Properties, then back to the full council meeting.
Public safety is called to order at 8:13. First item is acceptance of minutes from the February 7th meeting.
Move to approve.
All in favor?
Aye.
Done. Item 1, PCR 3321, a resolution erecting stop signs on both sides of Reed Street where it intersects with Minor Street. Councilman Sinapi.
This is supported by a traffic study and is to help resolve a long-standing issue on that street. So I would appreciate your support.
Okay, any questions or comments from the committee? Questions or comments from the council? Questions or comments from the public? Seeing none, do we have a motion?
Move favorable action.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
The City Public Safety Committee is adjourned at 8:14. Oh, I'm going to stay right where I am. Vinny, get down here.
Next up is Public Properties.
Who's in charge of this committee? You are. Anytime today. Anytime today. Yes.
All right. The City Council Committee on Public Properties, Land Use, and Community Affairs convenes at 8:15 p.m. We have the acceptance of the minutes from the committee meeting held on January 3rd. Do we have a motion?
Move favorable action.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
One item on the docket, we have PCR 25-22, a resolution relative to naming the primary roadway between Tollgate Road and Centerville Road that provides access to Windman Middle School and Tollgate High School as Robert Shapiro Drive. Councilman Staffy.
Hi, so this serves a dual purpose. One is to resolve a long-standing issue due to basically common sense. Right now, if you drive down Centerville Road, if you want to go to Tollgate, Windman, or the Impossible Dream, you take a right onto Centerville Road somehow, and they're all up there. Unfortunately, the average person has no reason to know that that road is also Centerville Road, and so it causes a slew of problems. Some of them safety related, such as when someone reports to a fire alarm at the wrong building because they have no way of really knowing which one's which. And then also deliveries going to the wrong place. And more recently, a giant piece of construction equipment being left at the wrong property and causing issues. So it addresses all of that, and it's been going on for years. Both the school department, specifically the superintendent, and the mayor is on board. Possible Dream made the initial request, so obviously they're on board. And then the other purpose of this is also happens to recognize my superintendent when I attended school, and a lot of us, in fact, who countless years did a great job, is well respected, well regarded, and deserves the recognition. So it's a win-win.
Thank you. I certainly do not oppose the name. Recognition well deserved, and there are, of course, very valid reasons, as stated, for making sure that that access road does have a name. Any comments from members of the committee? Members of the council? Councilwoman Travis.
I'd like to be added as a co-sponsor.
That's fine, of course.
Very good. Any other comments, members of the city council? Councilman McElroy. I'm sorry.
I think he wants to be added.
Oh, yes. Let's see. Any other members of the council wish to be added? Councilman Lattiser?
All are obviously welcome.
All right. Looks like we have the full council. All right. Very good. Any other comments, members of the council? Seeing none, any comments, members of the public? Seeing none, do we have a motion?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
There being no further business, the committee adjourns at 8:18 p.m.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. We're going to bring back the full council meeting. We're just going to give everyone a minute or two to get set, the clerk and the solicitor and the council. Welcome back, everyone. So we are now back in the full council meeting. We just finished committees. So if you're just joining us early this evening at 7 o'clock, we did the roll call, the salute to the flag. We had special presentation. We did general communications. We did executive communications. We've accepted the minutes from a previous meeting. We have done public comment. So now we are on number 1 on the second page of the agenda, the consent calendar. PCR 26-22, a resolution relative to bids. Committee report, finance.
Favorable action.
For action, Councilman Howe.
Move favorable action.
Second by Councilman Gephardt, Councilman Lattiser. Go ahead, Councilman.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm in a flurry of paperwork right now. Okay. Bid 2022-286 Alpha, City of Warwick, District 6, gasoline, low sulfur diesel, and ultra low sulfur diesel fuel. Bid 2022-286 Bravo, same title. Bid 2022-286 Charlie, same title. Bid 2019-208 Network Connectivity. Bid 2021-068 Collection Services for Tax and Rescue Fees. Bid 2022-301 Various Portable Radio Batteries. Bid 2022-324 SMS Magnet License Renewal. Bid 2022-164 Bravo Original Equipment Manufacturer Parts for Various Police Vehicles. Bid 2022-337 Repair to Rescue 12. Bid 2023-004 Appropriately Independence Day Fireworks Display. Bid 2023-005 National Night Out Fireworks Display. Bid 2022-308 Gatsby Day Fireworks Display. Bid 2021-363 Repairs to Compressor Equipment Thayer Warburn. Bid 2022-302 Cement Concrete Mixes Controlled Low Strength Materials Flowable Fill. Bid 17, which is bid 2022-335 State of Rhode Island Plumbing Services. And finally, bid 2022-335. Nope, that's not it. I apologize. I had two different documents, so I do apologize. What was that last one? Here it is. Bid 2022-354, Utilize Waste Management Transfer Station. That completes the bid docket, Mr. President.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions from the council on the bid docket, which was discussed earlier this evening? Hearing none, that's it, right? The clerk will call the roll for favorable action.
Mr. McAllister?
Yes.
Mr. Foley?
Yes.
Mr. Gephardt?
Yes.
Mr. Howe?
Yes.
Mr.
Yes.
Lattiser?
Yes.
Mr. McElroy?
Yes.
Mr. Ricks?
Yes.
Mr. Sinapi? Ms. Travis?
Yes.
9 yes. Consent
Thank you. The
calendar
consent calendar passes. Councilman Howe, I believe 2 items have been removed from the
Yes.
consent calendar.
Yes, Mr. President. Formler, bid 2022-333, Flock Automatic License Plate Readers is now PCR 27-22.
So we do need a recommendation on this now. Is there anyone that would make a recommendation that could be favorable action, unfavorable action, hold?
The committee voted no recommendation,
The
Mr.
committee
President.
voted no recommendation. So to move forward, I need someone from the council to make a recommendation. Councilman Ricks.
I would move to hold to May 16th. And the reason, the rationale for that is that if we were to be able to do our due diligence and draft the ordinance that Councilman Sinapi suggested, if that were to be drafted in the next month and heard on April 4th, then it would be heard for a second passage theoretically on May 2nd, and therefore it would be ripe on May 16th. I think that that would be a relatively aggressive schedule, but at the same time, I wouldn't want to see this just kicked from one meeting to the next and then resulting in members of the public expecting it to be heard when it wouldn't be quite ripe to be heard.
Okay, so I just need a second on Councilman Ricks's motion to hold. What was the date?
May 16th.
May 16th. Do I have a second for that?
I'll second that.
You'll second. Okay, so now we can have a discussion on the date of holding. Is there anyone that would like to speak, council members, on this motion? Councilman Gephardt.
So I agree with Councilman Ricks's reasoning on this. I think it would also be very helpful to have that departmental policy ready for our review, so we can see what limitations would exist and what governance would exist within the department. But I think also, referencing this ordinance that may come forward would be helpful as well. So I'll leave it at that. I mean, the timetable sounds, it may sound far away, but hey, it's March in like a couple days. So thank you.
Councilman Lattiser.
Oh, yes, thank you, Mr. President. So I'd just like to remind everyone that we come and go. Elected officials come and go, mayors come and go, senators, representatives, and ordinances can be changed. And they can be changed when you have new people sitting in these seats. So what you do today in passing ordinances to address certain current issues doesn't mean that it's there in perpetuity. These things can change as we as elected officials change. And as we all know, the voters make that decision whether we stay or go. We'll see where it goes from here. I've heard testimony this evening in support of it. I've also heard compelling testimony opposing it. So we'll see what happens between now and then. But as Councilman Rick said, I don't think this is something that we should be, just keep kicking down the road, holding it. You know what? See where this goes at the next meeting. We'll see what other comments we have from the members of the public, from police department here, and ultimately, I guess, make a decision then. So probably it is a good idea to hold for more interaction by members of the public. I think it's very, very important that the members of the public are aware of this, whether pro or con. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other council members? Councilman Foley.
Yes, I'm not sure who to direct this to, but I know that Cranston, Woonsocket, I believe Pawtucket have these cameras. And can we reach out to them to see if they have any ordinance or policies in place that guide them that we can look at? So I don't know where that request would go to, or is it Lynn or Joanne, or I'm not sure who.
Yeah, we'll reach out. Yeah. Lynn won't reach out, but we'll reach out. Any other questions on this motion? Councilman Howe.
Thank you, Mr. President. I actually, because we're discussing whether to hold it or not, I want a clarification through the president. Was a recommendation made to hold until May?
Yes, the first meeting in May, I believe.
May 16th, second meeting of May?
Second meeting.
Okay. I feel that with the time that we've had with this and with the comments and the discussion, as many of you know, I'm not a fan of holding many things, but I would like to have this discussion. And to clarify some things, I did ask. So I know we have a motion to hold. Is it regular that I could ask the chief some questions concerning this, or is it just on the motion to hold? Maybe just to dispel, or could I ask the questions? Can I ask the chief some questions concerning the item? The bid.
Yeah, I mean, it's up to the discretion.
It is on this
Yeah,
bid.
It's related to.
It is.
The motion, meeting, like questions like, if we hold it for this long, are we able to stuff like that.
Okay. It was more on the operation of the system. So it's not on necessarily to hold. So that would probably be my reason not to hold it, because I would like to extend further discussion on this. So thank you, Mr. President.
Okay. So would you like to speak to him or no? I'm sorry.
I would, if it's okay. It's on the bid, but it's not on whether to hold or not.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Why don't we while we have the Colonel here?
Thank you.
Yes, to answer your questions.
So Colonel, the question is, and there was some great conversation and some points brought up, and I know that we had our discussions, and it was brought up in a discussion we had in one of the meetings about data. And I understand that it screenshots the license plate in the car and the color of the car, holds it for 30 days, and then drops it. So can you explain to me about the term data? Like, like the only data, like what's the extent of the data that it would hold? Like, is it something that goes into, I know that you've already answered the question, I'm gonna ask for clarification. Is it something that goes into a federal file? Do we share that information? Is that information shared with federal agencies for no particular reason? Do we just take a pile? If they say, hey, send us this, do we send it to them? If you could clarify.
What's in the system is, and Mr. Litch can assist me if it gets more technical, but what's going to be in the system in the data files are going to be pictures. The system doesn't automatically get into the database from the registry and download that information and collect that information. It's just simply the pictures. And when we want to do a search, we enter into information specific to it, and it would spit out any information that we're looking for. It's not a huge database that's shared. The only things that are shared are that if we put in a license plate that we're looking for, if it would be a hit on a Cranston camera, it would alert us. That's the only thing that's shared.
So if you hear about, they say, okay, well, it was a blue car and we noticed that it had, a broken taillight on the right side, and you search it, you'll be able to search it for that without the license plate?
Correct.
Okay, so it can do the image as far as the vehicle, the back of the vehicle, looking for the vehicle with this. So it's more of, and a license plate is something that's an automobile identifier, just like a license of a human being carrying in their pocket.
Correct.
That is, the license plate and the car type is what a registration shows and a license shows. So if they say a blue car with a broken tail light, you guys can do a search and saying photos or identifiers, and if it comes up with 3 license plates, you can break it down and narrow it down to that.
That's correct. Yes.
Okay, within that 30 days.
Yes.
Okay.
After 30 days, it
It
out of the
drops
system.
off.
Yes.
Okay. So, and that's when it was mentioned earlier about the cloud, that's just the storage facility. I understand that things, so I'm gonna ask the hard question. If something is breached, and I understand, it would be the exact same thing as if I stood on the street corner, and I'm not downplaying this, and please understand, I'm not downplaying. I'm trying to get some explanation from my simpleton technology mind. If I'm standing on the street corner and I'm taking pictures of cars, that is completely legal. I'm jeopardizing possibly my safety because someone can come up and question it. But if I'm standing on the street corner just taking pictures of cars driving by their license plate, totally legal and can happen.
It is.
And so that's what this is. This is capturing those license plates to have a database for the 30 days. And if there is a situation that comes up and it matches, a car leaves Warwick on this road, goes into Cranston, ends up in Pawtucket, we can pinpoint where that vehicle is and calm the danger of what's in that vehicle.
That's correct.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Are there any more questions on the motion? Councilman Lattiser.
Can the follow-up be done to Councilman Howell's questions?
Yeah, but I just want to keep it real quick, because if we're going to hold this, we're going to do it all over again. So I don't want to have another 2-hour debate on
Okay,
something that we're going to hold.
but the point is, those questions had nothing to do with the hold.
Yeah, I know, it kind of got off, so that's why I just wanted.
That's what I was trying to
Go ahead.
clarify. So I apologize.
And I'll admit the Councilman Lattiser, everyone gets to speak, but I just want to point that out. Right now the motion is to hold, so if we're going to hold, we're going to do this again. So I just want
All right,
everyone to remember that.
I'll hold my questions until then, because mine have nothing to do with the hold.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions?
I do apologize, Mr. President. That was
Nothing to
my question. So
apologize.
I do apologize, Councilman Lattiser, too.
No, that's fine. That's fine, Chairman. No problem.
Okay, so there's been a motion to hold to May 16th. It has been seconded. Any other questions on the motion? Hearing none, the clerk will call the roll for the hold to May 16th.
Mr. McAllister?
Yes.
Mr. Foley?
Yes.
Mr. Gephardt?
Yes.
Mr. Howe?
Yes.
Mr. Lattiser?
Yes.
Mr. McElroy?
Yes.
Mr. Ricks?
Yes.
Mr. Sinapi? Ms. Travis?
Yes.
9 yes to hold.
Thank you. PCR 2722 will be held to May 16th. I believe there's a second item that was pulled from the consent calendar.
Yes, Mr. President, formerly bid 2022-336 is now PCR 28-22.
And the recommendation?
Hold until March 7th.
Hold to March 7th. Then we'll just do a quick roll call. The motion is made. Do I have a second? Second by Councilman Foley to hold on behalf of the committee report is the hold to March 7th. Clerk will call the roll.
Mr. McAllister?
Yes.
Mr. Foley?
Yes.
Mr. Gephardt?
Yes.
Mr. Howe?
Yes.
Mr. Lattiser?
Yes.
Mr. McElroy?
Yes.
Mr. Ricks?
Yes.
Mr. Sinapi? Ms. Travis?
Yes.
9 yes to hold.
Thank you. Now we're moving on to new business on the agenda this evening, which is PCR 33-21, a resolution erecting stop signs on both sides of Reed Street where it intersects with Minor Street. Committee report, public safety. For action, Councilman Sinapi.
I move for favorable action.
Second by Councilwoman Travis, Councilman Lattiser, Councilman Gephardt, Councilman Foley. Are there any questions on this that were not asked during the Public Safety Committee earlier this evening? Hearing none, the clerk will call the roll for favorable action.
Mr. McAllister?
Yes.
Mr. Foley?
Yes.
Mr. Gephardt?
Yes.
Mr. Howe?
Yes.
Mr. Lattiser?
Yes.
Mr. McElroy?
Yes.
Mr. Ricks?
Yes.
Mr. Sinapi?
Yes.
Ms. Travis?
Yes.
9 yes, motion passes.
Thank you. The motion passes. Next up is a PCR 25-22, committee report, public properties.
Recommend favorable action.
For action, Councilman Sinapi.
Move favorable action.
Second by Councilwoman Travis, Councilman Lattiser, Councilman McElroy, Councilman Howe. Are there any questions that were not asked during the Public Properties Committee earlier this evening? Hearing none, the clerk will call the roll for favorable action.
Mr. McAllister?
Yes.
Mr. Foley?
Yes.
Mr. Gephardt? Mr. Howe?
Yes.
Mr. Lattiser?
Yes.
Mr. McElroy?
Yes.
Mr. Ricks?
Yes.
Mr. Sinapi? Ms. Travis?
Yes.
9 yes, motion passes.
Thank you. We're at referrals and advertising, PCO 2-22, an ordinance amending the City of Warwick Comprehensive Plan to allow citywide solar in specific designations, and PCO 3-22, an ordinance amending the zoning ordinance of the City of Warwick. The City of Warwick is the petitioner. We are now moving to unanimous consent. Item 1 under unanimous consent is PCO 39-21 sub A. This would be for second passage. First question, is there any objections to members of the council to hearing PCO 39-21 under unanimous consent? Okay, hearing no objections, we will now hear item PCO 39-21. This is for second passage as amended. This was not in committee this evening, so I'm going to ask Councilman Howe if you could move this, and we can get a second, and then we can discuss.
Move favorable action on second passage as
Thank you,
amended.
Councilman. Second by Councilman Foley. Are there any questions on PCO 39-21 sub A this evening? This is for second passage. Councilman Lattiser.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. On, excuse me, line 56, this was one of the things that we had changed at the last meeting. It says the city may require a bid deposit. Could somebody just refresh my memory why it says may as opposed to shall?
Go ahead, Mr. Solicitor.
Thank you, Councilman. As many folks may recall, we had discussions about the process here, about whether and how a bid deposit should be done in order to assure that bidders are, genuine. And so there may be circumstances that bid deposits may not be appropriate, and there may be some that are absolutely, necessary. And so in comparing language from other jurisdictions that have utilized this type of process, we wanted to enable the departments and to have that option to use or not use the bid deposit. And that's why the may language is enabling in this new section that was added.
So on this section, this line item 56, when we moved first passage, it stated the city may require?
Yes, in that particular hearing that we had last meeting, which we came back to later in the night, and I read into the record the proposed language that had been brought up and amended it. This language was read into the record as is presented to you this evening, and thus we're here for under consideration of second passage if for the council's
thank you.
wishes. It was appropriately amended at the last meeting.
That's,
This is the language.
that's what
that
I
appears.
wanted to make sure of, that in fact, first passage was including that verbiage. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions on a PCO 39-21? As this was not in committee, are there any questions from members of the public on PCO 39-21 sub A? This is an ordinance in regards to amending section 2-19 of the Warwick Code of Ordinance relative to the sale of city-owned properties. This is for second passage. Any members of the public? Okay, and any additional questions or concerns from the council? Hearing none, the clerk will call a roll for favorable action for second passage as amended.
Mr. McAllister?
Yes.
Mr. Foley?
Yes.
Mr. Gephardt?
Yes.
Mr. Howe?
Yes.
Mr. Lattiser? Mr. McElroy?
Yes.
Mr. Ricks?
Yes.
Mr. Sinapi? Ms. Travis?
Yes.
9 yes, second passage.
Thank you very much. The motion passes. Ward 1, anything under unanimous consent to docket?
No, thank you.
Ward 2?
Pass.
Ward 3? Pass. Ward 4?
Pass.
Ward 5? Ward 6?
Pass.
Ward 7 passes. Ward 8? Ward 9? Pass. Councilwoman Travis?
If there be no further business of this honorable body, I move to a docket session.
Any objection to moving to the docket session? Hearing none, we are now in the docket session. Ward 1, anything to docket this evening? Ward 2?
One item. Tentative title, resolution in regards to erecting a four-way stop sign on Bellevue Ave on the east and west sides where it crosses Con and Astral Street.
Public safety. Ward 3? Pass. Ward 4?
Pass.
Ward 5?
Yes, Mr. President, I have, excuse me, I have a few. First one would be an ordinance, and the tentative title is short-term rental registration as it applies to all dwelling units offered for rental within the city of Warwick, except hotels, motels, and community residents. It'll also be co-sponsored by, excuse me, Councilwoman Travis. Mayor Picozzi is also co-sponsoring, and anyone else who would like to sponsor.
Okay, we're going to put that in the ordinance committee, and
looks like everybody.
It looks like we got some co-sponsors.
Oh. Okay.
Go ahead, Councilman.
Okay, thank you. The next one will be a resolution. This will be co-sponsored between myself and Council President McAllister. It will have the tentative title, Resolution Expressing Opposition to Legislation Before the Rhode Island General Assembly that would prohibit single-family residential zoning in municipalities with populations of over 20,000. And anyone else that would like to co-sponsor is welcome.
If that's, Councilman Sinapi would like to co-sponsor, Councilman Gephardt, Councilman Foley. Thank you.
Okay, my next one is an ordinance, tentative title is all bargaining group contracts presented to the city council for ratification must contain the current contract language, proposed new language in red bold print, and any deleted language must be in black striked out bold print.
Ordinance committee.
Thank you. That's all I have.
Councilwoman Travis.
Pass.
Ward 7 passes. Ward 8?
1, Ordinance governing the scope of use for any automated license plate reader system, comma, as well as any data derived thereof, comma, used in the city of Warwick.
Ordinance Committee. Councilman Ricks would like to co-sponsor. Ward 9, anything to docket this evening? All right, there is no more business before the city council. Everybody have a good evening, and we'll talk to you soon.